Story 1. I chose my stepfather to walk me down the aisle, and now my dad is begging for a second chance after seeing the photos. I was escorted down the aisle by my stepfather. After seeing the pictures, my dad broke down in tears and is now pleading for a second ceremony. I got married yesterday. When my dad eventually arrived in the evening after everything was finished, we spoke in a way that brought tears to his eyes. I feel terrible now because of that. To put things in perspective, I became engaged to my fiancée approximately 5 months ago. We chose to get married in our garden with just our loved ones because neither of us wanted a large wedding with lots of guests in a vast location. Our goal was to have a modest, intimate, and private wedding. Since we were getting married on the day of our 4th anniversary, this was a really memorable day for us who had been together for 4 years. We still had decorators and caterers coming in, so it was obviously not possible to reschedule despite the little wedding. I was unable to grant my dad's plea to postpone it because of this. I didn't want to because I didn't think it was necessary, more than the fact that I couldn't. My dad wasn't asking me to postpone my wedding because of an urgent matter. My golden child brother was in town and had planned a camping trip for the same weekend, so he wanted me to put it off. I'm not making it up, I promise. This is so ridiculous that I doubt I could ever create it. I couldn't think of a single medical emergency that would require him to wait a week that couldn't be rescheduled. So when my dad called me last week, he said he wouldn't be able to attend my wedding if I held it that weekend because he had a medical emergency. It was a weak excuse. My brother had surprised him with a camping trip which he had consented to go on, but it happened to fall on my wedding day. I persisted until he finally told the truth. The camping trip was my dad's top priority, but I think it's very clear what the decision should have been. He clarified that he didn't want to miss out on spending time with my brother, who only visits for a few weeks per year. My dad also tried to persuade me that since my wedding wasn't a big occasion, it would be simple to reschedule. He maintained that all I needed to do was talk to the merchants and let a few people know. I made an effort to explain why the wedding date was significant to me, but I soon saw that it was useless. He was going camping with my brother and had already made up his mind. My dad has always given preference to my brother, so I wasn't surprised by this. 3 years older than I am, my brother, 30M, has always been an overachiever. In the meantime, I've been a typical child. Naturally, he received a lot of attention and was constantly complimented, while I frequently felt ignored. He was such a brat with an inflated ego that I was unable to be glad for him, even though I used to feel jealous of him. He became conceited from all the attention and honestly thought he was a gift from God to humanity. We never got along since he was annoying and behaved like a bully to me. When he left for college, I was relieved. I was in middle school when our parents got divorced. My mom had an affair with one of her college pals, which led to the divorce. My dad agreed to split custody despite the unpleasant divorce that left everyone bitter. The affair was shocking, not the divorce. To be honest, my parents had a constant argument for as long as I can remember. They were never really happy together, even in my fond childhood memories. During family get-togethers or vacations, they simply put on a front for other people. They hardly ever talked or even looked at one another. At home, they eventually slept in different rooms. They probably stayed together for the purpose of staying together after falling out of love. My mom had her affair because neither of them tried to make things better. My dad had never been a pleasant man to live with, and I'm not attempting to defend her. Their marriage was going through a particularly difficult period when my mom had an affair. They got into violent arguments nearly every day, and my dad's heavy drinking just made matters worse. My mother eventually came clean about the affair and left the family one day. She still made an effort to communicate with us both, though my brother entirely disregarded her messages, and I was the only one who replied. She had cheated on our father, and he could never forgive her. My brother's inability to forgive her wasn't shocking. He and my dad have always shared a unique bond. Even though my dad denied it, it was clear from the time we were young that he had a favorite. It was evident from his conduct. My relationship with my father deteriorated as we grew older. My dad appeared to be upset with me after the divorce when I made the decision to keep up a friendly connection with my mom and stepdad. He became aloof. He probably wanted me to behave like my brother, who was often disparaging our mother and her new husband. A few months after the divorce was finalized, my mom got married again, and I was a bridesmaid at her wedding. My brother declined to go. My brother was forced to spend half the month with my mother because she had partial custody, regardless of his sentiments. My brother didn't like that my mother didn't play favorites. Therefore, those weeks were unbearable. He was unable to escape punishment for his misbehavior at her home. My dad made multiple attempts to request full custody, alleging that my mom and her spouse were abusing my brother. He failed because his claims were unfounded. Looking back, I'm happy I only had one parent who truly cared about me, my mother. I didn't despise my stepfather. He was a good man as well. I had mixed feelings toward my mother as a child. I wasn't sure if I should forgive her for cheating on my dad. I ultimately made the decision to follow my happiness. I put money into maintaining a positive relationship with my mother because it made me feel at ease. I'm glad I did. 6 years ago, she passed away from cancer. What mattered was that she was always a good mother to me, regardless of the events in her marriage. My brother was scarce even in her last days before she passed away. He did pay her a few visits, which gave her some serenity. My stepdad moved out of state when she passed away, but we continued to communicate. The repercussions of my mother's death? My brother acquired a job in London and moved there around a year after my mother's death. Now he comes to see our dad once a year. I don't talk to my brother anymore. However, my connection with my dad started to become better once my brother moved out and my mom passed away. After finding out about my mom's infidelity, he expressed regret for his lack of warmth for me. He acknowledged that he had acted in ways he wasn't proud of, particularly toward me, since he felt deceived and hurt. He tried to improve our relationship and admitted that he had always given my brother more attention. We've become closer over the last few years, which I never imagined was possible. I asked him to lead me down the aisle at my wedding because I thought things had improved. He concurred. As long as he showed me love and respect, I didn't mind that he was still very close to my brother. The ultimate camping trip, but recent events made it clear to me that as long as my brother was alive, I would never really be a priority. I came to see that my brother's relocation away was the only reason my dad even made an effort to patch things up between us. I become less important when my brother is around. It was a terrible wake-up call when my dad asked me to reschedule my wedding so that I could go camping with my brother. The realization that things hadn't altered as much as I had thought was painful. I made a snap decision in the heat of the moment. I consented to postpone my wedding. I called my stepdad a few minutes after I hung up with my dad. I invited him to lead me down the aisle without thinking twice. I'll admit that what I did at the time was spiteful and motivated by retaliation, but I believe that I was being good for myself by reprimanding my father. I didn't mind my stepdad filling in because he was already invited as a guest to the wedding, and he's always been a good man. Even though we don't communicate often, we are still close because he helped me get through my mother's burial. He was first hesitant to accompany me down the aisle, as he knew my father was also invited. Nevertheless, I persuaded him, and he accepted. I felt justified, so I didn't think about it too much. My fiancé's encouragement provided me with the necessary validation. My annoyance was exacerbated by the fact that my dad had hardly communicated with me during the preceding week, perhaps because my brother was back in town. As anticipated, my dad did not attend my wedding yesterday. I waited until the very last minute in the hopes that he would surprise me. However, he didn't. For the most part, I was content as my stepdad led me down the aisle. After all, it was my wedding day. Later, when I emailed my dad a picture of my stepdad escorting me down the aisle, that was the only hitch. I assumed he would be upset. I was surprised when he decided to confront me on the following bus back to town. My father and brother showed up that night as the visitors were departing. They appeared worn out, but my dad said the most. He urged me to have another ceremony so he could lead me down the aisle and expressed regret for not taking my wedding seriously. He acknowledged that I was justified in my conduct and that it was rude to ask me to reschedule for a camping trip. All he wanted was another opportunity, and he regretted everything. He even declared that he only wanted the joy of seeing his daughter go down the aisle and didn't care if no one else showed there. I was offended by his desperation. It became evident that his activities were motivated more by a desire to outdo my stepdad than by a genuine concern for me. I asked him if, had my stepdad not escorted me down the aisle, he would have responded in the same manner. His reluctance was sufficient enough. I informed him that he had let me down and that I would not be getting married again merely to please him. He blew the opportunity he had. He started crying and pleading for forgiveness when I ordered him to leave. He stated that he regretted everything after seeing the photos and that he had not known I was serious about holding the wedding. He adamantly apologized for not putting me first. He accused me of being callous and overreacting to a single error when I asked him to go once more. The final straw was that. I informed him that I had every right to defend myself at this point if he could treat me badly for the rest of my life without good cause. I reminded him that his actions were the reason behind everything that was happening to him. Unlike him, my stepdad truly cared about me, so I told him I was happy he escorted me down the aisle. Then I left him crying and went back inside. My brother and father were gone when I looked out a while later. Considering I regret what I said now, that some time has gone by, knowing I brought him to tears makes me feel worse. I question whether asking my stepdad to escort me down the aisle and then putting it in my dad's face was too harsh. Revise. I've come to the conclusion that I don't need to apologize after giving it some serious thought. My dad decided to put a camping trip ahead of my wedding. I've been defending his actions my entire life, and I'm sick of it. My dad's actions have no justification, and I am free to choose not to forgive him. I'm sorry for bringing him to tears, but a person can only take so much abuse. Beyond that, I think it's okay to defend your rights, even if doing so causes harm to the other person. I cried a lot during my early and adolescent years due to my dad's treatment of me. I never showed anyone how much it hurt me, not even him. I don't think he would have changed even if he had known. I'm happy that I didn't get in touch with him once more. My husband supports me and says it's the appropriate decision after we chatted about it. He wanted this decision to be mine alone, which is why he didn't voice his opinion sooner. I also expressed my guilt to my stepfather for becoming involved in my problems with my father. I even said I was sorry for using him as a means of retaliation. He assured me, though, that it didn't concern him. He knows how much I cherish him, and he felt gratified that I considered him first. My guilt was lessened by his comprehension, and I'm happy he doesn't take offense. I think it's obvious now to everyone who was upset with me for bringing up my stepdad. He doesn't mind. I don't mind my choice as long as he's cool with it. Drama after the wedding. Since the wedding a few days ago, my dad has been phoning and texting me daily. I don't want to hear what he has to say. Therefore, I haven't even opened or replied to his messages. I've made the decision to put my attention on my upcoming honeymoon with my spouse rather than this issue. Update 1. My dad called again this morning. I chose to read his messages for the first time, even though I didn't answer. They were all apologies, as one might anticipate. He agreed that I had every right to be angry, said he hadn't been a good father, and begged for another opportunity to make things right. He acknowledged his prejudice against my brother and vowed to make every effort to mend our friendship. I felt depressed after reading those messages. The entire scenario is quite distressing, but I've decided that I need space. I contacted him back to establish boundaries after reading the messages. I requested that he refrain from contacting me for a time because I was going on my honeymoon. Repeated apologies just serve to prolong the suffering. They won't alter the past. I made it obvious that I needed him to honor my wishes, but I also vowed to get in touch when I was ready. I understand, he said, adding that he would wait for me to get in touch with him. Update 2. As I enter the third day of my honeymoon, my father has not gotten in touch with me, but my brother contacted me out of the blue today, and it was totally unnecessary. I didn't recognize the number since he was using a burner phone. I was going to hang up when I heard his voice and responded, but he baited me by calling me an escapist. Sadly, it was successful because he is skilled at making me feel uncomfortable. My brother gave me a lecture on the value of family, saying I should apologize for the terrible way I was treating our dad. Additionally, he bemoaned how uncomfortable my dad was and how I had ruined his visit by cutting short their camping trip. He went on to accuse me of being envious of him, saying that my behavior was motivated by resentment because my father put him before me. He further claimed that by continuing to see our mother during the divorce, I betrayed my father. His childishness astounded me, but I wasn't shocked. I informed him that a man-child like him would act in this way. I explained that I actually felt sorry for him and wasn't at all envious of him. My sibling is still emotionally stunted despite having a successful profession. Whatever he accomplishes, he will always be unhappy and unlikable. I interrupted him when he attempted to argue with me, stating that it would only serve to highlight his desperate attempt to hide his discontent. I ended the phone before he could say anything else. Even though I know I shouldn't have talked to him at all, it was rewarding in its own right. I made the decision to only take calls in an emergency from that point on for the remainder of my trip. Update 3. Talking to my dad. A few days ago, I came home from my honeymoon. After a while of staying in holiday mode, my husband and I decided it was time to return to our regular life and our jobs. I made the decision to face my father yesterday. I went to his residence after work. Naturally, my brother was also present, and he appeared astonished to see me. Since I don't care about him, I gave him my full attention. I didn't want to have any serious conversations with my brother, so I asked to talk to my dad alone. I was certain that he would be unable to be silent and would continuously interrupt, and I couldn't stand it. My dad and I were finally alone when my brother left the room, albeit he appeared to be upset about it. When we were alone, I expressed my disappointment in my father's actions. I reminded him that I had asked him to lead me down the aisle because I felt our relationship had improved over the previous few years, but it became evident what his priorities were when he requested me to reschedule the wedding. My stepdad is significant to me in his own right, but I acknowledged that asking him to lead me down the aisle was selfish and vengeful of me. I informed my dad that I still didn't know if he had come that day because he truly regretted missing my wedding or because he felt competitive with my stepdad. In any case, it was no longer relevant. We cannot undo the past. What has been done is done. A way forward for reconciliation. He initially appeared to be very distraught, but I assured him that starting over was the only way to move on. I am aware that a lot of people would anticipate that I would completely cut him out of my life, but in all honesty, I don't want to or can live with that. I know how quickly life can take individuals away because I lost my mother to cancer. I can't ignore the positive times I've had with my father, even with all the negative ones, but I also can't deny the pain he's given me. I clarified that I had reached a point of acceptance. I'm willing to give him another chance to make amends for his mistakes from now on. I urged him to allow me that space, though, because I need time to recover. We can attempt to mend our father-daughter relationship when I feel ready, which could take weeks, months, or even years. I wish to avoid touch till then. I asked him if he could accept this, and he nodded. Before I left, he asked if he may give me a hug. It was emotional when we hugged, but I held back from crying until I was back in my car. In conclusion, we decided on that, and I believe it works, at least for the time being. The course of events will become clear with time. I'm comfortable with the situation for the time being. If you're enjoying this story so far, hit that like button and consider subscribing for more. Now on to the next story. Story 2. My fiancé's best man is planning to slut-shame me during his wedding speech as a joke, and I'm unsure how to handle it. What should I do? My fiancé, best man, groomsman, and I have known each other since we were kids. We collectively met between 6th and 7th grade and have been running around in the same friend group ever since. The group has grown and shrunk over the years, but a small core of us have remained extremely close. Recently, my fiancé's best man, Jay, 30M, has been making jokes when we're hanging out about the two of us dating that have now escalated. Admittedly, when I met Jay in 6th grade, I had the hugest crush on him, and everyone knew. I was much taller than average for a girl at that age, and he was one of 2 guys in the entire school as tall as me. That, though, is where the story ends. I had one hell of an awkward phase in middle school, and he was very clear from the start that he was not into it. Post-awkward phase as friends and adults, it was something we constantly joked about, but never seriously since everything between us had always been platonic. This joke of me being rejected by him has now recently turned into how he dated me first whenever fiancé and I are around. Despite the inaccuracy and an increase of it being brought up, everything has remained pretty lighthearted in context, and, while annoying, is something I've been able to brush off or quickly rebuttal. This escalated this weekend when two of fiancé's groomsmen were over hanging out with fiancé and I. The wedding was brought up, and after a concerning look between the two, they mentioned something had happened with Jay they thought we should know about. Apparently, Jay had been telling them stories he was considering for his best man speech, with the main one centering around how I had been shared around and had made my way through the entire friend group. While they kept what was explicitly said fairly vague out of respect for me, they were clear it crossed the line and insisted I had slept with the entirety of the group attending the wedding. They were very clear with Jay that he could not say anything like this in his speech/toast. Jay responded with an "I know," stating that I had already made it clear my maid of honor would be proofreading all speeches prior to the wedding, so he wouldn't be able to get away with it anyway. But he ended the conversation by saying something along the lines of, "But what if I could," leaving the possibility open. Of all the groomsmen in the party, 6, including Jay, these two were the only ones in this core friend group, and the only ones I had any sort of history with that could potentially be notable. It was all prior to high school and very innocent. One I went on my first movie date with, where our parents had to drop each of us off because we couldn't drive and picked us up afterwards. The other was the classic first 6-month relationship in middle school, where it took 6 weeks to muster up enough courage to hug each other between classes in the hallway. Sure, we made out and very middle school level things happened, but this is something we've all laughed about now for over a decade. I wasn't the only girl in this larger friend group, and throughout the years, this was something that happened pretty frequently because we grew up in a smaller area. Overlap happened like this regularly in every group, and even more so as we went through high school. My fiancé is the only one I have seriously dated or had any sort of intimate relationship with of this friend group. We had an on-again, off-again relationship throughout high school that ended for a bit once I moved out of state for college. But we remained close friends and eventually reconnected when I moved back in 2019. We started dating in 2021 and got engaged in 2023. He's the only one in all of this I've ever slept with who has seen me naked, and so on, making this situation even more odd and off-putting. Jay and I have been close friends since high school. When fiancé was in a toxic relationship that isolated him from Jay after I'd left for college, Jay would reach out to me for advice on school, girls, relationships, and more. He had always been our number one supporter, advocating for fiancé and I to reconcile our relationship throughout college and into adulthood. He even took a bit of credit and would throw around an "I told you so" here and there when we eventually did reconnect. I'm not sure how to handle this. I could write an additional post about how frustrated, confused, wronged, and uncomfortable I feel, all of which I plan to discuss in more detail with fiancé after sitting on the issue for a bit longer. We've all talked about it, recognizing the way Jay is framing things as wrong, but fiancé and the groomsmen are able to brush it off in a way I feel like I can't. I don't know how to move forward from this or what to do next. Additional information. Fiancé and I aren't getting married until the end of next summer. So much of the conversations we had about toasts and speeches have been more theoretical, except that a few have asked for the opportunity to give a toast, including best man. We have loosely put this information and saved the dates on the website and other prints. Fiancé and best man have been best friends since kindergarten. They were neighbors and inseparable until they each went their own way for college. My fiancé's parents basically raised him alongside fiancé. Jay has strictly only ever expressed platonic feelings for me, even when both single or alone together. We have only ever acted as friends towards each other after the embarrassing early middle school crush I had. TLDR, my fiancé's best man is lying about having history with me, as well as my history with others, proposing the idea that he calls me out as a joke for being shared around their friend group in his best man speech/toast at our wedding. I don't know how to move forward from this or what to do next. Update 1, April 3rd, 2024. First, I want to thank those who were clear and honest about how alarming the situation was from their perspective. When posting, I was still processing various feelings about the matter, and still am, which not only limited my ability to really look at the situation from a different perspective, but also left me in a state of paralysis of what to do next, both long and short term. Given the nature of this situation, there was a lot of historical context that was omitted to avoid making the original post too lengthy. I have done my best to include the context that seems most relevant based on the original comments in my update below. Now, for the update. I have spoken in further detail to both my fiancé and one of the other groomsmen. I also confided in my maid of honor about the situation for an additional perspective outside of this specific friend group. After these conversations, and reading through all comments on the original post, I've come to realize the significance of a few key details. Jay has a deep-rooted superiority complex. He always has, and it is something many in our friend group have become accustomed to. He has always been the type who seemed to believe he was the standout amongst his friends, whether that be through education, athletics, his career, or with women. Jay has also always been a bit egocentric, and a lack of accountability or consequences for his actions has been growing for some time now. Despite it almost always being unintentional, he more often than not is oblivious to the inconveniences and harm he causes others, as long as it is beneficial to his personal ego. This is about jealousy from a few different angles, but not about me specifically. When looking at the full picture, this escalation feels like a continued attempt to knock my fiancé down for reaching that next stage in life. Whether that is because fiancé has reached it before him or has moved onward without him, I cannot say for sure. Jay has issues with misogyny that have also been escalating in tangent with everything else. His lack of respect for the women he has dated has also seemed to increase. Much of the personal tension he and I have had recently pertained to his perspective of women that have begun to veer into a more disrespectful realm, alluding to an increased belief that due to their gender alone, women are inferior. The good friend he was to me over the years, who was always kind and supportive, who never overstepped boundaries and was always there when needed, can exist in tangent with the above information. They are not mutually exclusive. Life happens and people grow, sometimes in opposite directions. I spoke in depth with one of the groomsmen to have further transparency of the situation and what was explicitly said. He acknowledged that the conversation initially centered around the excitement they had for the wedding, and Jay clearly stated he wanted to give fiancé and I the best wedding and experience possible. The conversation evolved, and Jay mentioned looking for icebreakers for his speech/toast and began bouncing a variety of distasteful jokes that focused more so on the expense of my fiancé than anything else. Then the idea was proposed about explicitly stating that my being passed around the friend group was how they all remained relatively close since middle school and high school. Jay was immediately shut down by the other groomsmen, told to know his audience, and also recognized he was openly alluding to things that were untrue and that could have an extremely negative impact on me personally. The conversation stopped shortly after this, and the groomsmen, without context of how this issue had been escalating, chalked it up to a one-off situation with Jay acting full of himself in the moment. Fiancé and I are the first of our cohort to get married and have a full-blown wedding with a ceremony and reception. These comments did not start escalating until after our engagement, roughly 1 year ago, following Jay's breakup with his long-term girlfriend. Jay has never made comments like this to me or my fiancé privately or when it is just the three of us together. Any scenario where this has been an issue has been in an environment which involved others, and mostly others that are not a part of this cohort from middle school. So what next? As mentioned in my original post, I spoke with fiancé in detail about the situation and how I was feeling when all of this had been brought to our attention a few days prior. In an attempt to preserve myself in the moment, I brushed it off more so than I probably should have. I do not blame fiancé for not having any immediate or strong reaction in the moment, because I had avoided one myself. I think it's important to note that Jay is not a day-to-day character in our lives. While he travels frequently for work that brings him to our area, we live states apart. He has not lived in the same area as me or my fiancé since high school. Much of this evolution with his personality has happened in the last few years as well. I recognize this is not an excuse for the lack of accountability on our part, but felt it added an important context that this was not something that was observed and ignored daily, but one that has slowly been recognized over time, since we maybe see him 4 times a year at most. Fiancé was extremely open in conversation, immediately brought up having a conversation with Jay, but admitted to not viewing this as anything more than Jay just being Jay, and that he was all talk at this point. We had only discussed how Jay had continually escalated the situation and how uncomfortable I had now become from this. The lack of accountability fiancé had made for Jay's action definitely hurt. But then I recalled a commenter who had asked if I still considered Jay a friend, because he actually was, or because that was how it has always been. To sum up what turned into a lengthier and much more productive conversation with fiancé, I told him that while I recognized his friendship with Jay was something that had always been a part of his life, I did not personally want to be friends with him anymore after this. I brought to fiancé's attention that while the scenario was explicitly about me and attacking the integrity and character of a 12-year-old girl, every action or usage of the scenario was used against him to invalidate his accomplishments of getting married or make him come off as less than. I told fiancé it was up to him on how he handles his conversation with Jay, but regardless, the disrespect Jay had shown me in this was a clear statement of what he thought of our own personal friendship. I firmly believe it is not my place to force how my fiancé handles his own personal relationship with Jay. In this, all of this was deeply taken to heart, and you could tell that fiancé had started coming to his own realizations as the conversation progressed. He recognized that if the roles were reversed, or if it had been any one of my bridesmaids slandering me or him in any way, he would be firmly advocating for me to reevaluate my friendship with him. Fiancé asked for a few days to stomach the information himself and reflect on what he wants to say to Jay. He asked if it would be acceptable for him to bring up that I no longer wanted to be friends with Jay personally, and I said yes. I was clear that if Jay wanted to talk with me following their conversation as well, it would need to be the three of us and not a personal conversation. I'm still evaluating how to approach the speeches/toasts at our wedding and be open to perspective and ideas. For now, I reserve the right with my fiancé to omit Jay from giving a speech and having my fiancé choose another groomsman to do so in his place, potentially canceling the speeches/toasts altogether. And if Jay is allowed to give a toast, telling the DJ to cut the mic if need be, all of which he agreed with. There is still plenty of time for the situation to develop and for potential future updates, but I wanted to again thank those that emphasized the seriousness of this issue, gave their honest input and advice on how to handle the situation, and provided perspective on what they believe should be done next. When originally posting, I was still in a state of shock, trying to accept the situation as it had unfolded. Your responses constructively pushed me into the reality of what was happening and what I was feeling. Now for some comments. Wow. I have a couple of comments. How were you/fiancé friends with this guy for that long and been okay with his behavior? Why is his best man so comfortable to even joke about something like that? Why does he need time to digest cutting him off? Why is he even still involved in the wedding? Personally, I wouldn't allow anyone to disrespect my significant other, let alone someone I'm supposed to be marrying. Best man or not, I think they are both walking red flags. Jay for being a misogynist, and your fiancé for not cutting him out of the wedding and his life. These things can be taken as a joke for sure, but the level of disrespect is too great, and your fiancé should stick up for you if he has any shroud of decency and respect for you as his fiancé and soon-to-be wife. Opie, happy to answer since I think it will be helpful for many. I also added a very small edit to the update to acknowledge a bit of this. Much of this behavior has developed over time and apart from all of us. As a kid, he always had a superiority complex, but he was also very kind and respectful. It came off more as immaturity than anything else, plus at the time we were kids too. Following high school, Jay and I each moved a significant distance away from where we grew up. He still lives that far away. We get together maybe 4 times a year at most, and I genuinely believe he did not see me as more than some woman to use as collateral to knock his friend down when he made those comments. Fiancé has no brothers, and Jay has always been a part of his life, filling that space. Jay also has no immediate family in his life, and hasn't for quite some time, making fiancé's role a bit more impactful. It is much more similar to him cutting off a brother than just another friend. Fiancé has also always been extremely kind and had a very peaceful soul. Don't get me wrong, while fiancé prefers to avoid conflict, he has always been willing to stand up when necessary as well. I don't believe he realized how much had been at his expense as of late until after our conversation. Given their long history, I believe he's reflecting on a lot more than just this specific situation. The wedding is still over a year away and not until the end of next summer, and this all has happened in less than a week. Neither fiancé nor I have talked with Jay yet, so I did not feel it was right to post about any hard decisions regarding cutting him from the wedding and so on. These things can be taken as a joke, but the level of disrespect is too great, and your fiancé should stick up for you if he has any shroud of decency and respect for you as his fiancé and soon-to-be wife. This was a huge part of the larger conversation we had, and something my fiancé acknowledged as well. I think initially it was viewed under the lens of us collectively being childhood friends, and fiancé is the mediator rather than the lens of me as his wife until our second, much larger conversation. Opie reply about the fiancé's reaction. It's only been a handful of days since this all came to light. I wish your fiancé's reaction had been more about coming to your defense than Jay's, but understand that sometimes people need time to truly process all that contributes to a messy situation, especially one with deep roots and close ties. Thank you for conveying this so well. I did my best to add an emphasis to this, but could not do so as well in my own words and fear it got lost in the length of the post. Something for me to work on in future posts for sure. I very much have worries, and knowing my personality will also be worry day of. I expressed this to my fiancé as well, and he completely understood. I recognize there is still plenty of concern to still address with my fiancé, but given how fresh this situation is, I wanted to afford myself a little grace of absorbing my feelings for what has happened before figuring out exactly what to do. I lost a friend too. Update 2, October 11th, 2024. I'm considering canceling our wedding and calling off our engagement over a pizza. TLDR. After canceling his health insurance without discussion or my knowledge, and a severe lack of support, consideration, and accountability, I'm considering calling everything off. Buckle up because this is a long one. While the drama around my fiancé's best man has simmered, the deeper issues surrounding a lack of support have not. Apologies in advance for this not being centered around my fiancé's best man. Not much has honestly changed. A conversation between them was had, much of which was my fiancé assuring him that things would blow over and accommodating Jay's stresses that it was only a joke. While my fiancé acknowledged what was said was wrong, the conversation wasn't to set boundaries. I eventually had to have my own conversation with Jay that my fiancé stood silently in the room for. I reached my breaking point 2 weeks ago following everything with his best man and a few other challenges we've been facing. I tried putting my best foot forward these past 6 months. I sought out therapy to address the lack of support and anxiety I was feeling and have made intentional efforts to work on our relationship to ensure we were in a stronger place before committing to each other in May. After some unexpected and startling health concerns requiring an emergency room visit, my fiancé came clean to me about secretly canceling his health insurance in January without talking to or telling me. When I asked him why, he blamed the cost of the wedding being too expensive and wanted to save the $150 a month, taking no other accountability for his actions outside of an apology. I have a small amount of experience in accounting and have budgeted the wedding down to the last dollar. This has included the consideration of inflation and other potentials as well. In total, from the smallest decoration to the cost of a marriage certificate, everything comes down to around $22,000. All of which I have strategically budgeted for throughout our 2-year engagement. My parents have graciously given us $14,000 as well to help with the expenses, and I have personally taken on the price of my dress, wedding bands, and a slightly larger portion of the vendors. To put it simply, while it may not be as much as others, we have privilege. Not only was there no need for this cancellation, but I have yet to see any of that additional support for expenses. Regardless, in response, I took it upon myself to take more of the costs on and pursue a part-time job on top of my full-time position that earns roughly $70,000 a year. While it's not by a large margin, I do make the most between us individually and have a larger responsibility in my daily work life with longer hours and a significant level of expected travel. As a result, the choice to take on a part-time role was not one of want, but of desire to ease the burden he was feeling. I started a role reviewing blogs, essays, resumes, and other forms of writing in July. Our relationship quickly untraveled. Because I commute, I typically arrive home 3 hours after my fiancée. After arriving, I would immediately have to hop on my laptop and review writings for the next 2 hours or so to stay on top of my quota. I tried my best to make a routine out of it, so we would have intentional time together once I finished each night. This was met with cold shouldering, frustration, and a lack of consideration for my level of exhaustion and strain. For months, anytime I asked him to choose a show to watch or decide on dinner, he usually does cook. Because I get home so much later while I revised, I was met with scoffs and accusations that I no longer cared to tend to our relationship. I tried countless times to address his frustrations and was shut out or cornered in a circular argument about my priorities. 2 weeks ago, I was slated to travel for my full-time position to Atlanta during Hurricane Helen. In a matter of 12 hours, my afternoon flight for the next day was shifted to one leaving at 5 a.m. to give me ample time to shelter in place prior to the arrival of the storm. I rushed home to finish packing and prepare myself to drive over an hour to the airport and stay at a hotel nearby for additional flexibility in case of issues surrounding my early travel that next morning. After arriving home, I immediately hopped in the shower and asked my fiancé to order dinner so we could have one final meal together. During my shower, he offered to order a hot honey jalapeno and pineapple pizza from a new place we'd been wanting to try, which I normally would have been happy to try. However, I don't like jalapeno the way some people don't like cilantro, and I'm avidly against pineapple on pizza, something that's come up multiple times during our relationship. And while I'm good with spice, the idea of taking that on with the travel stress and early start time I had the next day made me hesitant. I calmly asked if there was another option for tonight, and if we could try that specific pizza once I got home instead, expressing my concerns over my nerves. This received a frustrated scoff and sarcastic response of "What then, just cheese?" I explained any other topping combination would work and restated my issues. He walked out of the bathroom without response, and I finished my shower. The pizza was never ordered. No food was ordered. I followed up as soon as I got out of the shower, asking if there was another option he wanted or a place he wanted to consider, and received a prompt no. As I finished getting ready, I asked if anything had been ordered again, and no. I finally snapped and begged and demanded him to order the hot honey pizza because I was out of time. He accused me of making him feel like he's forcing me into the decision, but after a bit of back and forth, the pizza was ordered and the mood immediately shifted. Everything was peaceful, warm, and loving it home up until I left. Yet, I cried the entire hour and 15-minute drive to the airport hotel. I cried the entire next day, throughout the storm in Atlanta, and the entire day after. Following a lack of sleep, stress, and intense emotions, I had a complete mental breakdown, realizing I can't live like this. I called my fiancée and poured out every frustration, emotion, and feeling, which I admit was probably not presented in the best light, but none of it was well received. In the 2 weeks since, despite many attempts, conversations have gone nowhere with only ultimatums being offered for me to make. I proposed countless alternatives that focus on us working on ourselves and together these next few months, but he's only seeking an answer to whether or not we will be getting married next summer, and has made it known this is a decision that must be made by the end of October. At this point, I don't see how I can possibly gain the confidence to commit myself to him by next summer. For the sake of not doubling the length of this post, I will leave it at this for now. All of this is being discussed with my therapist at this time. He has chosen not to pursue counseling with me despite my asking and advocating. Many words have been expressed, and I'm trying, but I'm starting to second guess and waver on just how far love can get me through all of this. Now on to the next story. Story 3. I was sick to my stomach when I discovered my wife's secret Google account, which contained hundreds of photos of my ex-girlfriend. I, 36, met my wife, Bailey, 33, 9 years ago through mutual coworkers, and we hit it off immediately. I fell absolutely head over heels with this woman. She was everything I was looking for. I had gotten out of a toxic, dare I say abusive, long-term relationship right before that with a woman Bailey had been acquainted with, but not friends with. I had her blocked on everything and had no contact with her since breaking up. We got married right after the tail end of the pandemic, bought our first house together, and started trying to conceive. That was difficult because Bailey has PCOS, but last year, she finally gave birth to our first daughter. I'm having a blast being a dad. It's kind of a dream come true. I finally got my happy life with my perfect wife. My perfect wife until last Monday. My laptop's battery hit the bed, so I opened up Bailey's work tablet with an attached keyboard. You can set it up like a monitor to check on some tax stuff. She wasn't home. It was just me and the baby. But we've never asked permission to use each other's devices. We've always been open like that. There's nothing for us to hide. That's what I thought. When I opened up the internet, I noticed she had the incognito tab open. Never in a million years did I expect to discover what I did. My wife has a secret Google account with a photo album saved called XX. So I clicked on it. Did I discover an affair? Nudes? Nope. In this Google album were over 300 photos, 348 actually, of my ex, the woman I was with right before I met Bailey, the woman who tormented me and made me feel worthless. The album said it was started back right around the time Bailey and I started dating and was updated as recently as 2 weeks ago. The photos range from candid shots with family to pictures at her work functions. There were even pictures from her yearbook. I don't know how Bailey could have found her high school yearbook photos. Photos for vacations, Idaho. Photos from work, pictures of her in crowds, screenshots of videos, and screen recordings of videos. Just her. The other people in the photos would be scribbled out or the photo would be cropped and zoomed in just on my ex. There were other disturbing things I found too. There was another album with just zoomed-up pictures of my ex's hair. Come to think of it, Bailey had recently started wearing her hair different, and my ex had a very identifiable hair type. There was another album with screenshots of comments on social media. Of course, I can't find them because I have her blocked, like Facebook groups she's in public posts. And my ex is very low-key on social media. I can't imagine the lengths Bailey went to find them. My ex literally lives in another country now. There are also different links to the exact outfits she was wearing, like very specific blouses and trousers you'd have to really go looking for to find. A specific water bottle I remembered purchasing, and identical hiking boots and sandals. So basically, my partner of almost a decade has been a single white female. My girlfriend has secretly stalked her to the point of buying her exact clothes and changing her hair. And now I'm starting to realize Bailey's new interests over the years were just my ex's. Bailey has turned herself into my ex. Everything feels like a lie. Our love feels like a lie. The things we share feel like a lie. I threw up and had a panic attack. I looked at our daughter and felt betrayed. I haven't confronted her yet. I don't know if I want to. I want to run away with our daughter. I want to print out all her pictures, leave them on the table, and disappear. I don't know what to do. I just want to throw up. Now for some comments. Comment. Holy cow. That definitely is alarming. The best thing to do is address it now to see what'll change. If she no longer has someone to replicate, the toxic side of me would slowly start mentioning things like, you really do remind me of someone, and nonchalantly bite into an apple and walk away. I feel like what's worse is that she's subtly made these changes over time under my nose. So my ex has a specific career, and Bailey didn't express interest in switching careers to the exact same thing until after I had mentioned what my ex did. Didn't notice at the time, but I remember telling her, X went to school for that. The hair was more recent. The outfits and objects slowly over time. The interests, I'm not sure how much she's stolen personality-wise from my ex and what she actually likes. It's all incredibly exhausting and confusing. Comment. I'm so sorry. This sounds like something out of creepypasta. I'm actually surprised with the amount of support I've gotten here in the last hour, haha. Believe it or not, there are no other red flags in our marriage. Now I don't know what else I've missed. Added. While I talked about my ex, Most of the things I told my wife about were negative and painted her in not such a good light. My wife knows these things and knows they were traumatic. Of course, I've mentioned things like what she does for a living and things she used to do. I think everything else she found she got through intense cyber stalking through my ex's friends and family. The yearbook photos? I have no idea. Edit. Remove specific info so I don't accidentally dox myself. Update 1. I'm pretty sure I accidentally got my original post removed just now because I tried to update it with a link to my update. Oops. Anyway, I'm a guy who found the Google Drive full of pictures of my ex. So I was not expecting my original post to go viral on YouTube and TikTok and have so many responses. Yikes. I am overwhelmed by the support. I am humbled by the number of people who have been through this experience on both sides. I have an update, but it's probably not as exciting and as juicy as you want. It's not bad, though. First, let me clear things up. If people think this post is fake because it doesn't make sense or are trying to conceive timeline is short or the way I worded things makes it look like a teenager or woman wrote it, continue to think that because it means I've successfully been vague enough and worded things to not accidentally dox myself. Believe this is a creative writing exercise, so I don't embarrass myself for real. No, I didn't actually throw up. I was in the middle of a panic attack. Private browse tabs were open to the websites with clothing and objects. Another tab was signed into Google Photos. When I exited the Google Photo tab to look at the websites with clothing and came back, it was already signed out and I couldn't get back in. A lot of the clothing I recognized wasn't because I remembered my ex wearing them. There were more recent pictures of her in the file wearing them. And I remember the day Bailey bought the water bottle that also happened to be in the folder. The hair? Bailey and my ex are the same race, and my ex wore braids in a particular way. Not so particular that it's exclusive to my ex, because Bailey has also worn different braids, but seeing pictures of her made me put two and two together. Is there any way Bailey could have gotten with me in an attempt to get to my ex? Was Bailey possibly obsessed with my ex before she met me? Probably not, because Bailey grew up here, and my ex originally moved here for university. And while you could drive across the border, it's not that easy, and I don't think Bailey was going back and forth to stalk her in person. Also, the reasons why my ex and I broke up have nothing to do with Bailey, and she could not have had any involvement. On to the actual update. The next day, when I had calmed down, I called several social workers and therapists. I was planning to confront her there. Unfortunately, the only places that take our insurance did not have an opening for another couple weeks. So despite what a lot of you think, I've known my wife for nearly a decade, and even while I was confused and upset and doubting things, I didn't think she'd be a danger to me. We took the baby to Grandma's, and I asked her to go for a walk with me. I did not beat around the bush and straight up told her I found the folder. Her face got very red, and she was frozen, but also tried to play dumb at first. I was persistent, and she started crying and begged me not to leave her. This is what I uncovered. Bailey first started looking up my ex out of curiosity, to keep tabs, I guess. But over time, it became more pathological. It's like she got addicted to it. But she also wanted to please me. Okay, maybe I talked about my ex a lot more than I thought, and Bailey wanted to emulate the good parts. She told me she really doesn't know who she is, and my ex's image was something she latched onto because she had me. First, finding information about her became a game. Finding the clothing and objects became a game by searching things like blue water bottle green stripe, until the couple compared the product to a photo and found the exact one. The reason why I couldn't find the post wasn't because I had blocked my ex, but because my ex had made a new Facebook under a different name. Bailey found her profile by searching up a family member. She made fake social media and added enough mutual friends until she could see my ex's posts, and until her private Instagram accepted her. She weaseled her way into her exercise Facebook group where the videos were posted and searched her school on a yearbook website to find the yearbook pictures. Over time, she just collected the images and would get excited to find something new, despite the fact that my ex is extremely private on social media. The folder had originally been called Hex the X, in case I discovered it. She was going to make the excuse of saving the pictures to put a hex on her. When she made a burner Google account, she deleted the old folder and named the new one XX. Then she got sloppy and comfortable, and that's right around the time I just happened to open the work tablet. We took a break. It was a while. We made it to couples counseling, and Bailey and I also began seeing separate therapists. She still has not had an assessment with a psychiatrist, but it's on the list. She promised to stop and deleted the album in front of me. Slowly, certain clothing items began to disappear from the closet. I still do not entirely trust her, and that is for me to work on. I'm afraid she has another secret account somewhere, like a backup. The physical mimicking is actually stopping, though, including the hair change. We're still not okay. I want us to be okay, and it's okay if that takes time. If we end up not being okay, then that's something I have to deal with. What I do know is that my wife is incredibly insecure, probably mentally ill, and is misled. I don't really want to walk away from that. Although this probably isn't the most exciting update, I appreciate the private messages. I just couldn't get back to Reddit cares and links to resources. I'm not sure how I feel about social media, YouTube, and TikTok picking up on my story, though. That's wild. Until next time, if I ever give another update, I hope it's a good one. Now, for some comments. Comment: the outcome does not look positive. Why stay in a one-sided relationship? At least put a plan together that runs concurrently, so you're prepared should it not work out. Seek legal advice, prepare evidence, and don't do anything stupid. At least then you will be in a better place either way. A plan is something I'm still having trouble coming up with, and it's been a couple months. I think I'm afraid to make a plan. Does that make sense? Now on to the next story. Story 4. My ex-wife divorced me after a personality change. I found out I have a brain tumor. How do I move forward? My name is Andrew, 32 years old. In 2022, the chapter closed on a significant part of my life, my marriage. It wasn't just any marriage. It was a journey filled with love, adventure, and an exceptionally deep connection. Reflecting on it, our relationship wasn't merely between two people. It intertwined with entire families, becoming a testament to the love and bonds we shared. My ex-wife's brother and I were so close that I had the honor of being his best man, an experience that highlighted the depth of our intertwined lives. I met Sarah, my ex-wife, 33 years old, during a time of great optimism and hope. We were young and in love, ready to take on the world together. Our relationship blossomed quickly, fueled by late-night conversations and spontaneous adventures. We spent hours exploring the city together, getting lost in its winding streets and hidden treasures. We laughed, we argued, and we discovered new things about each other every day. It was a time of discovery and growth, a period of intense bonding that laid the foundation for what was to come. One of the defining moments of our early relationship was our trip to Belize. It was a spur-of-the-moment decision, fueled by a sense of wanderlust and a desire to experience new cultures together. We found ourselves immersed in the beauty of the Mayan ruins, the ancient stones whispering secrets of a bygone era. It was there, amidst the backdrop of history and romance, that I made the decision to propose to Sarah. Sarah said yes, of course, her eyes sparkling with joy and excitement. In that moment, surrounded by the ancient ruins and the promise of a future together, we felt invincible. We returned home with hearts full of love and dreams of the life we would build together. Looking back on those early days now, it's hard to believe how much has changed. The innocence of our youth has been replaced by the harsh realities of adulthood, and the promise of forever has given way to the harsh reality. Our bond, as beautiful as it was, began to face trials that neither of us could have anticipated. Initially, it was like any other challenge a couple might face, something we believed we could overcome together. Yet, as time passed, the hurdles became more daunting, testing our resilience in ways we never imagined. My mental health began to deteriorate, casting long shadows over our lives. What started as subtle changes in my behavior soon spiraled into something far more severe. In public, I was constantly on edge, plagued by an unshakable feeling of being followed. This paranoia escalated to the point where I became convinced our home was bugged and that police or even government agencies were monitoring me. These weren't fleeting thoughts. They were deeply ingrained beliefs that dictated my actions, leading to a profound sense of fear and isolation. The day my wife, out of sheer desperation and concern, convinced me to go to the emergency room, marked a pivotal moment in our story. There, I received a diagnosis that seemed to offer some answers: a psychotic break, accompanied by bipolar and schizoaffective disorder. This diagnosis was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it provided a name to the chaos that had taken over our lives, but on the other, it brought a new set of challenges and questions about the future. Despite these difficulties, my wife stood by me, embodying patience and compassion. But as time went on, even with treatment, my behavior didn't stabilize. It was as if the essence of who I had always been was slipping away, replaced by someone we both didn't recognize. This transformation wasn't just internal. It manifested in actions that were out of character for me. I started lying and turned to substance abuse, a stark departure from my previous lifestyle of social drinking and the occasional recreational use of weed. It was a downward spiral, one that seemed to pull me further away from the person I once was and the life we had built together. I knew I was treading on thin ice when I started dabbling with drugs behind my wife's back, but somehow the thrill of it all seemed to override any rational thought. Stupid, I know. And now, facing the consequences, I can't help but feel like the biggest jerk on the planet. The day she found out was like a nightmare unfolding in slow motion. I could see the anger bubbling beneath the surface as she stared at me, her eyes narrowing into icy slits. It was the look I never wanted to see directed at me, yet there it was, burning into my soul. She didn't even need to say anything. Her silence spoke volumes, echoing with disappointment, betrayal, and hurt. My stomach churned with guilt as I tried to come up with some feeble excuse, but the words caught in my throat like a noose tightening around my neck. Then came the explosion, the torrent of words, sharp as knives, lashing out at me with a force that left me reeling. She didn't hold back, letting me have it with both barrels, every lie, every deception laid bare for all to see. And I couldn't do anything but stand there, taking it all like a punching bag. I watched as tears welled up in her eyes, her voice cracking with emotion as she struggled to make sense of it all. It was like watching someone I loved being torn apart from the inside out, and knowing that I was the one responsible for causing that pain made it all the more unbearable. I wanted to reach out, to comfort her, to tell her that I was sorry, but the words caught in my throat like a lump of coal. What could I possibly say to make things right again? How could I undo the damage I had done? The silence that followed was deafening, stretching out between us like an unbridgeable chasm. I could feel the weight of her gaze bearing down on me, heavy with disappointment and disbelief. And in that moment, I knew that things would never be the same again. Days turned into weeks, and still the rift between us remained. Every attempt at reconciliation seemed to only drive us further apart, like ships passing in the night. I could see the pain etched into her every movement, hear it in the way her voice trembled whenever she spoke to me. I wanted to make things right, to prove to her that I could change, that I could be the man she deserved, but no matter how hard I tried, it never seemed to be enough. The trust that had once bound us together had been shattered beyond repair, leaving nothing but a hollow emptiness in its wake. And so I found myself trapped in a never-ending cycle of guilt and remorse, haunted by the memory of her tears and the sound of her voice breaking as she uttered those words that cut me to the core. How could I have been so blind, so selfish, to jeopardize everything we had built together? I wish I could turn back the clock, to undo the mistakes of the past and start afresh, but life doesn't work that way. And all I can do now is live with the consequences of my actions. Eventually, the strain became too much. The day my wife told me she wanted a divorce was a day I'll never forget. It was a moment filled with a profound sense of loss, not just for the partnership we had, but for the future we had envisioned together. In the aftermath, I tried to maintain some connection with her family, particularly her brother, who had tried to support us both. But over time, even that connection faded, leaving me more isolated than ever. Friends and family gradually distanced themselves, a response to the ongoing turmoil and additional revelations that came to light. In their eyes, and perhaps rightfully so, I had become a pariah, The year that followed was one of deep reflection and struggle. I grappled with the consequences of my actions and the reality of my situation. I checked myself into rehab, determined to reclaim my life and rebuild what I had destroyed. The first few days were the hardest. Detoxifying was hell, both physically and mentally. Every fiber of my being screamed for a fix, but I refused to give in. The counselors and therapists at the facility became my lifeline, guiding me through the darkest moments with compassion and understanding. Group therapy sessions forced me to confront the demons I'd been running from for so long. I shared my story with strangers who quickly became confidants, realizing that I wasn't alone in my struggles. Together, we leaned on each other for support, finding strength in our shared experiences. As the days turned into weeks, I began to see glimpses of the man I used to be, the man Sarah fell in love with. Clear-headed and focused, I tackled each challenge head-on, determined to emerge from this ordeal a better version of myself. However, things didn't go as smoothly as I had anticipated. Jobs came and went, and I found myself barely scraping by, a stark contrast to the stability I once took for granted. It was a low point, both personally and professionally, one that forced me to confront the changes I needed to make in my life. Amid this turmoil, there were glimmers of hope. I managed to invest in property. Investing in property was a turning point for me. It felt like finally gaining solid ground after years of uncertainty. The process wasn't easy, and there were moments when I doubted if I could pull it off, but with determination and perseverance, I made it happen. Owning property provided a sense of stability and security that I had longed for. It was a tangible asset, something I could hold on to and build upon. Watching the value of the property grow over time was incredibly satisfying, knowing that I had made a smart investment for my future and for my family. But beyond the financial benefits, owning property gave me a sense of pride and accomplishment. It was a symbol of how far I had come from the depths of addiction, proof that I was capable of building a better life for myself and my loved ones. A new companion, a little pup named Archie, brought a sense of comfort and purpose to my days. Therapy became a beacon of light, offering insights and coping mechanisms that slowly helped me navigate the complexities of my situation. After everything gradually stabilized, I found myself facing unexpected health issues. Headaches became a daily occurrence, a constant throb in the background of my life. Riding the elevator triggered dizzy spells, leaving me disoriented and unsteady on my feet. Concentrating for too long brought on pounding headaches, as if my brain was protesting the effort. Even driving became a challenge, with persistent ringing in my ears adding to the discomfort. At first, I brushed off these symptoms as mere inconveniences, attributing them to the stress I had endured and my erratic eating habits. I convinced myself that I was simply feeling weak, a side effect of everything I had been through. But as the days turned into weeks and the symptoms persisted, I began to worry. However, because I was too busy, I did not make an appointment to see a doctor. The revelation came like a thief in the night, unexpected and life-altering. It was during a routine business trip, one of many I'd taken in the recent months as I tried to rebuild the semblance of a normal life, that the world as I knew it came crashing down. One minute I was navigating through the bustling airport, the next I was on the ground, consciousness slipping away like grains of sand through my fingers. Waking up in a hospital was a disorienting experience. The sterile white of the room, the beep of machines monitoring my vitals, and the concerned faces of medical staff hovering over me. It was a stark contrast to the life of constant movement I had been leading. The confusion was palpable, the fear a silent companion, as I tried to piece together what had happened. The journey to diagnosis was fraught with uncertainty. Initial tests were inconclusive, leading to more questions than answers. My medical history, a tapestry of misdiagnosis and treatments for mental health issues, painted a complex picture that puzzled the medical team. It was the insistence of a keen-eyed doctor who noticed the peculiarities in my symptoms and history that led to the decisive MRI scan. The scan revealed the unexpected culprit, A brain tumor nestled in a part of my brain where it had been orchestrating the chaos in my life and shadows. The moment of revelation was surreal. Sitting in the dimly lit office, the images of my brain displayed on the screen, I listened as the doctor explained the nature of the tumor. It was benign, they believed, but its location had been impacting my behavior and mental health in profound ways. The words brain tumor echoed in my mind, a stark contrast to the previous labels I had been given. My initial reaction was one of shock, quickly followed by a flood of relief. For years, I had been a prisoner in my own body, my mind a battlefield of paranoia, erratic behavior, and unexplainable emotions. To have an explanation, a tangible cause for the turmoil, was a liberation I hadn't expected. It was as if the pieces of a puzzle had suddenly clicked into place, offering a clarity I had been seeking for so long. My mind wandered to my ex-wife, to the life we had shared, and to the dreams we had for the future. Could the unraveling of our marriage have been avoided if this diagnosis had come sooner? The thought was haunting, a bitter reminder of the fragility of life and the impact of what lies hidden within us. In the immediate aftermath of my diagnosis, a flood of emotions and thoughts besieged me. There was an undeniable urge to share this significant discovery with my ex-wife and her brother, not for the sake of rekindling lost connections, but to offer them an explanation, an insight into the chaos that had dismantled the life we once cherished together. Yet as I dwelled on this impulse, the complexities of such an action became increasingly apparent. The pain, confusion, and upheaval that my behavior had inflicted were not wounds easily healed, and my reemergence, regardless of the intentions behind it, risked reopening scars that had perhaps begun to mend. The bond my ex-wife and I shared was once unbreakable, forged in the fires of shared dreams, laughter, and love. Her brother, too, was not just a sibling by marriage, but a friend, a confidant. The dissolution of our marriage wasn't merely a legal separation. It was the crumbling of a shared existence that had intertwined deeply with our families, friendships, and sense of self. The decision to divorce, while devastating, was a necessary measure she felt compelled to take for her well-being, and painfully, I couldn't dispute her reasons. Our paths had diverged irrevocably, altered by the storm that had swept through our lives. In the wake of the divorce, the silence between us grew, a chasm widened by lost trust and hurtful actions. The initial attempts to maintain a connection, to reach out through messages and emails, soon gave way to the realization that such efforts were met with silence, not out of malice, but a need for closure and healing. Mutual friends, too, found themselves caught in the aftermath, eventually stepping back as the complexity of our situation made it difficult to navigate the waters of allegiance and support. Yet the shadow of my past, the what-ifs, and the realizations brought about by my diagnosis lingered. Update 1. After everything that happened, I decided not to reach out to my ex-wife and her brother. Many suggested I should try to reconnect, offering various methods to ensure the message would reach her, from social media posts designed to indirectly inform her to direct messages delivered through mutual friends. Each suggestion was made with good intentions. Yet despite the appeal of these ideas and my initial inclination to follow through, I've opted for a different path. Social media, for one, doesn't hold the same presence in my life as it does for others. My online footprint is minimal, with an Instagram account for my dog, Archie, and a practically dormant Facebook profile. The idea of using these platforms to reach out indirectly felt both impractical and somewhat impersonal, given the gravity of the situation. But beyond the logistical hurdles lies a deeper consideration. What impact would my reaching out have on my ex-wife? Would it truly be for her benefit, or would it be a selfish act on my part, driven by my own desires and regrets? The more I pondered this, the clearer it became that initiating contact might not be in her best interest. She's a strong, resilient person, and I have no doubt that she's built a fulfilling life for herself since we parted ways. To re-enter her life now, especially with such significant news, could potentially cause unnecessary pain and confusion. This realization forced me to confront my own motivations. A part of me had harbored hopes for reconciliation, for a fairy tale ending where everything was forgiven and we could start anew. However, such fantasies overlook the real and profound reasons for our separation. The issues that led to our divorce weren't just fleeting challenges. They were significant, life-altering problems that required more than just a hopeful reunion to resolve. Reflecting on our shared past, I'm filled with a sense of nostalgia and affection. Our relationship was rich with shared experiences and memories, from competitive board games to shared adventures, each moment a testament to the depth of our connection. I cherish those times, from the silly questions we asked each other to the roles we played in each other's lives, including the Dungeons and Dragons campaigns that brought us so much joy. Her presence in my life, her thoughts, and her companionship are deeply missed. Yet despite this longing, I understand that moving forward is essential. My recent diagnosis and the revelations that came with it have provided a new perspective on my past actions and the future. It's clear that my journey from here must be one of personal growth and accountability. The upcoming surgery represents not just a step towards physical recovery, but also a metaphorical step towards healing and understanding. Alongside my journey to recovery, I've had to come to terms with the fact that my ex-wife has moved on and found a new partner. It wasn't easy to swallow at first, seeing her with someone else, building a life that didn't include me. But I've learned to accept it, to let go of the past, and focus on my own healing. I'll admit there were moments when jealousy and resentment threatened to consume me. I wondered why I wasn't enough, why our marriage had fallen apart. But dwelling on those thoughts only dragged me back into the darkness I fought so hard to escape. Instead, I chose to focus on the present, on rebuilding myself from the ground up. I poured my energy into my recovery, into finding stability and purpose in my life once again. And slowly but surely, I started to see progress. With each passing day of sobriety, I regained a sense of clarity and strength I thought I had lost forever. I rediscovered hobbies and passions I had long neglected, finding joy in the simple pleasures of life once more. And as I began to heal, I realized that my ex-wife's happiness no longer held power over me. I won't lie and say it was easy. There were moments of doubt and despair, times when I questioned whether I would ever truly be okay. But through it all, I held on to the belief that I was strong enough to overcome anything life threw my way. And you know what? I am. I may not have all the answers, and I may still stumble from time to time, but I'm learning to embrace the journey, to find beauty in the brokenness. So, to my ex-wife, if you ever happen to read this, I want you to know that I'm okay. I've found peace within myself, and I hold no ill will towards you or your new partner. I hope you're happy, truly happy, because that's all I ever wanted for you. I never said it before because I didn't want to burden you with my struggles, but I want you to know that I love you. I always have, and I always will. And even though our paths have diverged, I'll always cherish the memories we shared. As for me, I'm looking forward to the future with a newfound sense of hope and optimism. Whether or not I ever fully conquer this disease, I refuse to let it define me. I choose to live each day to the fullest, to find happiness in the small moments, and to love fiercely, just as I always have. In the meantime, life continues to move at a relentless pace. Job opportunities have arisen, presenting new challenges and decisions. And my recent property purchase adds another layer of complexity to my situation. Each of these developments, while stressful, also brings a sense of purpose and progress. As I navigate this busy period, I find myself feeling optimistic for the first time in years. The prospect of what lies ahead, though uncertain, is invigorating. My focus now is on healing, both physically and emotionally, and on the growth that I hope will follow. The path ahead is unclear, but I'm ready to face it with a renewed sense of hope and determination. My story, with its twists and turns, may not have the resolution that some were hoping for. It's a narrative that's still being written, with lessons learned and more yet to be discovered. For now, I'm content to take things one day at a time, appreciating the progress I've made and the potential for what's yet to come. Now on the next story. Story 5. Maya Mile wanted me to quit my job and become a som, or let my infertile Estelle have my son because she thinks I'm a bad mom for leaving him with a grandma while I am at work. Hi everyone, my name is Sasha, 35F, and my husband Richard, 39M, and I have a son together named Oliver for M. My mother-in-law, Brenda, 67F, has made such a weird demand out of me that I don't even know how to react. Let me back up a bit and tell you about our family dynamics. I've always been a working woman, and my mother-in-law, Brenda, has always had a problem with that. Now, the thing is, my husband has his own successful business and is more than capable of being the sole earner of the family. However, I also love my job and the financial security that comes with it, so I never wanted to give it up. But Brenda, being the traditional woman she is, has always tried to push me to quit my job. One of the first major instances was when we had Thanksgiving dinner a few years ago. We were all sitting around the table, and the conversation shifted to everyone's careers. I mentioned a big project I was working on and how excited I was about it. Brenda looked at me with this disapproving stare and said, "You know, dear, you don't have to work if you don't want to. Your husband provides very well for the family. It's not too late to be more involved at home." It was like she completely dismissed my career and the passion I have for it. Then there was the time we were at a family gathering for my husband's birthday. Brenda made a big deal about how she was so proud of her son for being such a successful businessman. Then she turned to me and said, "I hope you realize how lucky you are to have such a supportive husband. Maybe it's time you considered focusing more on being a homemaker. It's important for families to have that balance." The way she said it made me feel like my role and contributions at work were somehow less valuable. Another instance was during a summer barbecue. I was talking about an upcoming promotion I was up for and how excited I was to take on new challenges at work. Brenda didn't say much at first, but later, while we were clearing the table, she pulled me aside and said, "You know, working so hard might not be the best thing. You should think about what's truly important, being there for your family. A job can be replaced, but family is forever." It felt like a subtle jab, implying that my dedication to my career was somehow harming my family, which was frustrating and disheartening. The most recent instance was during our Christmas family dinner. I was discussing how I had been working late nights to meet a deadline and how proud I was of the progress I was making. Brenda, in her usual fashion, sighed and said, "You really should think about scaling back. Your husband and I both think you're working too hard. It's time to enjoy life more and focus on what truly matters." It's like she's always trying to convince me that my career is a burden and I should be content with just being at home. In every one of these situations, Brenda's comments seem to reflect her own beliefs about traditional gender roles and what she thinks a woman's place should be. It's not just that she's suggesting I quit my job. It's the way she makes me feel as though my ambitions and career are somehow less important than conforming to her ideals. I've tried to explain my perspective to her, that my job is not just a source of income, but also a part of who I am and something that brings me fulfillment. But every time, she just waves it off, saying things like, "Well, everyone has their own priorities," with this undertone that implies mine are misplaced. Things changed a lot when I got pregnant with Oliver. Brenda had this assumption that as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I'd automatically quit my job and embrace the role of a stay-at-home mom. She seemed to have this vision in her head of what motherhood should look like, and it definitely didn't include a pregnant woman working. When I was around 6 months pregnant, I was still working full-time, and that's when Brenda's pressure really started to ramp up. One day, she came over to visit and noticed I was still working on a project from home. She immediately started in on me with, "You know, dear, it's really important to take it easy now that you're so far along. You should think about quitting your job. It's better for both you and the baby." Her tone was so insistent. It felt like she was almost trying to dictate my life decisions. Another instance was when I was at her house for a family dinner. I was tired and in the middle of preparing a presentation for work, and she saw me struggling to balance everything. She looked at me with a concerned expression and said, "Honey, you're about to become a mother. It's time to think about what's best for your child. Working while pregnant is one thing, but you should really consider taking a break and focusing on your family. It's what's best for everyone. Her pressure wasn't just verbal, it also felt like she was trying to undermine my choices by always suggesting that my job was secondary to being a mother. During another visit, she gave me a stack of brochures for parenting classes and said, "I've signed up for a few of these myself. I think you'd benefit from them, and it might give you a chance to think about taking some time off work." She acted like she was being helpful, but it felt like another way to push me towards quitting my job. One particularly frustrating moment was during a weekend family gathering. I was at a point where I had a lot of deadlines and was feeling pretty overwhelmed. Brenda took one look at me and said, "You know, you're working so hard. You should be at home resting and preparing for motherhood." It was as if she couldn't grasp that I was handling things just fine and that my work was also a significant part of my life. Even when we had a heart-to-heart about how I planned to balance work and motherhood, Brenda seemed to have her own agenda. I told her that I intended to take maternity leave and then return to work part-time. She looked at me with disbelief and disapproval and said, "You know, it's great that you're planning to return, but I really think it's important for you to prioritize being home with the baby. There's no substitute for a mother's presence." It felt like she couldn't accept that my choice to work part-time wasn't an attempt to neglect my role as a mother, but rather a way to balance both my career and my family. After Oliver was born, I was on maternity leave, and as I'd always planned, I was getting ready to return to work. Brenda, on the other hand, seemed to take this as a golden opportunity to insert herself into every aspect of my life. She started coming over more frequently, not to offer help, but to critique and comment on everything I was doing. One instance that really stands out is when she showed up unexpectedly one afternoon while I was trying to get Oliver into a nap routine. I was already exhausted from the sleepless nights and trying to figure out a schedule that worked for both me and the baby. Brenda walked in and immediately started inspecting the nursery. She looked around, raised an eyebrow, and said, "You know, I read that babies sleep better in a room that's kept a bit cooler. You should think about adjusting the temperature." It felt like she was undermining every choice I'd made about Oliver's care, and it was incredibly disheartening. Then there was the time she came over while I was trying to manage Oliver's feeding schedule. I was pumping and feeding him from a bottle, and Brenda decided it was the perfect moment to discuss the benefits of direct breastfeeding and tell me how it is better for kids. Now, some of you might think that she was just trying to give Oliver the best, but the truth is that she always said things in such a condescending tone that would boil my blood. The situation got even more overwhelming when she started coming over during my work hours. I had a few meetings lined up and was trying to balance working from home while also caring for Oliver. Brenda would just pop in and start rearranging things or giving unsolicited advice on how I should manage my time. One day, I was in the middle of a Zoom call with a client, and Brenda barged into the room asking something that I didn't even remember at the moment. It was incredibly distracting and made it hard to focus on my work. Richard and I had a serious talk about how to handle the situation. We were both feeling frustrated with Brenda's constant intrusion and her habit of critiquing our parenting choices. We decided it was time to set some boundaries. Richard called Brenda to discuss it, and we had her over for a sit-down meeting at our house. We were calm but firm, explaining that while we appreciated her concern and advice, we needed her to respect our decisions and give us space to figure things out on our own. Brenda was surprised and defensive. She initially protested, saying things like, "I'm only trying to help. I just want what's best for Oliver." It was clear that she didn't fully understand how her actions were impacting us. She seemed to take our request as a personal rejection rather than a necessary step for us to establish our own parenting style. I was relieved because I knew we had to draw the line and establish some boundaries for our own well-being and for the health of our family dynamic. At the same time, I felt guilty because I knew Brenda meant well, even if her methods were overwhelming and intrusive. It was tough to balance standing up for our own choices with the desire to maintain a good relationship with her. After the conversation, Brenda's visits became less frequent, and she started to respect the boundaries we'd set. However, there was still a noticeable shift in our relationship. She seemed a bit distant and hurt, which was hard to navigate, but at least the constant pressure and critique had eased. After some time, I went back to the office and Richard and I did everything we could to ensure Oliver was well taken care of. We hired a nanny, found a great daycare, and made sure to spend as much quality time with Oliver as we could. Despite our best efforts, Brenda didn't completely let go of her critical attitude. Every so often, she would drop these snide comments that really got under my skin. One day, we were hosting a small family lunch, and I was talking about how great our nanny was and how well Oliver was adjusting to the daycare. Brenda took a sip of her coffee, looked at me with this almost pitying expression, and said, "Well, at least Oliver's in good hands during the day. I just hope he's not missing out on too much of his parents' time." Her tone was so condescending, as if implying that we weren't doing enough for our child. It was incredibly frustrating because she wasn't seeing the full picture of how much effort we were putting in. There was also the occasion when we were having dinner with Brenda, and she brought up a recent milestone that Oliver had achieved at daycare. She said, "Oh, that's nice to hear. I just hope you're not letting someone else do all the important stuff while you're at work." It was one of those moments where her comment felt like a direct attack on our parenting choices, even though she tried to mask it as a concern. The most frustrating instance was during one of her surprise visits. She showed up unannounced while we were getting ready for an evening out. We had hired a babysitter for the night, and Brenda noticed Oliver was getting settled with the sitter. She said, "I guess it's nice that you get a break every now and then. Just remember, the best memories are made when parents are fully present." Her comments made me feel like we were failing in some way, even though we were doing our best to ensure Oliver was loved and cared for. I started to get used to brushing off these comments, but they still stung every time. It was hard not to feel defensive when it seemed like Brenda was constantly questioning our choices and implying that we weren't giving Oliver the attention he deserved. I knew deep down that we were doing everything we could to provide a loving environment for him, but Brenda's snide remarks made me second-guess ourselves more often than I would have liked. However, for the past few months, Brenda has been on overdrive with her critiques about how we're supposedly ignoring Oliver's needs. It's been incredibly hard to set boundaries with her, and her comments have been getting more and more intense. The worst was when she flat out told me that I either needed to become a stay-at-home mom or hand Oliver over to my sister-in-law, Rebecca, 31F. I was absolutely shocked at what she was suggesting. Brenda's argument was that since Oliver spends some of his time with the nanny while Richard and I are at work, we might as well just let Rebecca take care of him. She said, "You know, since you're clearly so busy with your job, maybe you should consider having Rebecca look after Oliver full-time. That way, he'd have constant care and you wouldn't have to worry about it." I was dumbfounded. It felt like she was dismissing all the effort we'd put into finding a good balance and assuming that anyone else could just step in and do a better job. When I heard that suggestion, I was livid. I told her outright that she was crazy for even suggesting it. I said, "Brenda, that's not a solution. I'm not just going to hand Oliver over to Rebecca like he's some sort of burden. We have a plan that works for us, and I'm not going to let you dictate what's best for our child." I was shaking with anger, feeling completely overwhelmed by her lack of respect for our choices and her need to control the situation. Brenda's response was even more infuriating. She said, "Well, you know that Rebecca isn't fertile, and you're already handing him over to the nanny during the day. It's not like you're there with him all the time anyway. At least with Rebecca, he'd have family around him and not just a hired caregiver." To top it off, she had the nerve to accuse me of being ungrateful and a bad mom for choosing to continue working. She said, "You're so focused on your career that you're forgetting what's really important. A mother's place is at home with her child, and you're not being fair to Oliver." Richard was equally flabbergasted by Brenda's suggestions. When I relayed the conversation to him, he was furious. We both agreed that Brenda had crossed a line, and it was time to put a firm stop to her interference. Richard took it upon himself to address the situation directly. He told her, "Brenda, we've heard enough. Your constant criticism and suggestions are out of line. We've made decisions about our family that work for us, and we don't need you dictating how we should raise our child. We've set boundaries, and you need to respect them." Richard's words were firm and clear, but I could see Brenda was hurt and defensive. She tried to argue that she was only trying to help and that her intentions were good, but we made it clear that her help was neither needed nor wanted in this matter. We told her that her suggestions were not only inappropriate, but also undermined the careful balance we'd worked hard to achieve. We made it clear that we would not tolerate any further discussions on this topic and that she should never bring it up again. Things calmed down for a bit after our confrontation with Brenda. I thought maybe she had finally gotten a message and would back off. That was until one Tuesday when I had a major scare. I texted our nanny to check in on how Oliver was doing, and her response completely threw me off. She told me that Brenda had shown up unexpectedly, said she'd take over, and instructed the nanny to leave. I was shocked and instantly worried. I tried calling Brenda right away, but she didn't pick up. My heart was racing as I grabbed my things and left the office to head home. I couldn't shake the feeling of panic as I made my way back. When I arrived at our house, I noticed the main door was unlocked. I called out for Oliver and Brenda, but there was no response. My anxiety spiked as I rushed inside. I went straight to Oliver's room, and what I saw there made my blood boil. Brenda was in the middle of packing Oliver's things into a bag. She looked up startled as I burst through the door. I demanded to know what she was doing, and at first she tried to play it cool, saying, "Oh, I'm just helping out. I was just organizing his things." I was furious and my mind was racing with anger. "Helping out? You gotta be kidding me." I snapped. "You don't just show up and take my child without even asking me. What the hell do you think you're doing?" When Brenda realized I wasn't going to let her off the hook, she admitted that she intended to take Oliver to Rebecca's place. "I just thought it would be best for Oliver to be with family," she said. "He needs more attention and stability, and since you're so busy, Rebecca can give him that." I was so enraged that I felt like I couldn't think straight. My blood was boiling, and I felt like I was about to explode. "No," I said firmly. "Get out. I don't want to hear any of your excuses. You have no right to make these decisions for us or for Oliver." I wasn't going to tolerate any more of Brenda's overstepping, especially when it came to my child's well-being. I grabbed the pack bag from her hands and told her to leave the house immediately. Her face was a mix of shock and hurt, but I was beyond caring. I couldn't believe she had the audacity to come into our home, disregard our boundaries, and try to take Oliver away without even discussing it with us first. It was a complete violation of our trust and our parenting decisions. As Brenda left, she tried to apologize and explain that she only wanted what was best for Oliver, but I wasn't interested in hearing her justifications. I needed to make it clear that she had crossed a line, and this kind of behavior was completely unacceptable. I made it clear that any future interventions or unsolicited decisions about Oliver's care would not be tolerated. I immediately called Richard to let him know what had happened. He was as shocked as I was and agreed that Brenda had seriously overstepped. We both knew that we needed to set even firmer boundaries moving forward. Richard and I spent the rest of the evening calming down and discussing how to handle the situation. We decided that it was time to have another serious conversation with Brenda, this time with the goal of establishing clear, non-negotiable boundaries regarding her involvement in our family life. That evening, we headed over to Brenda's house. We were both seething, and Richard was especially adamant that we needed to make a strong statement. When we arrived, we laid it all out for Brenda. We told her that this was the last straw. She had crossed a major line, and we were seriously considering pressing charges against her. We didn't even know if we had enough grounds to do it, but we wanted her to know that we were prepared to go all the way if necessary. We also mentioned that we had security cameras installed at our house, including in the rooms where she'd been caught trying to take Oliver. We said, "We have video evidence of you trying to take Oliver. This is serious, and we won't just let it slide." Honestly, we were hoping that this threat would be enough to scare her into backing off without us actually needing to involve the authorities. Brenda's reaction was immediate and desperate. She started begging us not to press charges, pleading with us to reconsider. She kept saying things like, "I didn't mean to overstep. I just want what's best for Oliver. Please don't do this." It was clear that she was scared and finally realized the severity of her actions. We told her flat out that if she wanted to avoid any legal trouble, she needed to stay away from us and our family. We emphasized that we would not tolerate any more interference or unsolicited advice about how we should raise our son. "If you care about our relationship at all," Richard said, "you'll respect our boundaries from now on and stay out of our lives." After laying down the law, we left her house. The whole ordeal was exhausting, and I couldn't help but feel conflicted. Part of me felt like maybe we'd let her off too easy, especially considering the gravity of what she tried to do. It was a tough call, and while the immediate threat was dealt with, I still worried about ensuring that Brenda wouldn't try to cross any more boundaries in the future. For now, it might be best to limit or even cut off contact with Brenda for a while. This would give us time to establish our boundaries clearly and give Brenda a chance to understand the seriousness of our demands. I'd love to hear any additional suggestions or advice from anyone who has been in a similar situation. It's important to me that I'm doing everything possible to protect my son and ensure that our family can move forward without further issues. Update 1. After everything that had happened with Brenda, I thought I'd finally caught a break. But then a few days later, I received a call from Rebecca. She asked if we could meet, and since I was still reeling from the whole situation, I agreed. She came over to our house the same day, and I was bracing myself for whatever might come next. When Rebecca arrived, she was clearly upset. She explained that she had found out what had happened and was really angry herself. She told me that Brenda had been lying to her, claiming that I was overwhelmed with work and wanted to hand over Oliver to her. Brenda had painted a completely false picture of the situation. Rebecca was furious when she learned the truth because Brenda had also told her that I didn't want to deal with Oliver and that I was embarrassed about failing as a mother. It was all a twisted manipulation to justify Brenda's own actions. Rebecca's anger was palpable as she shared how Brenda had been criticizing me and manipulating her own daughter. She said, "I had no idea Brenda was saying these things about you. She told me you were struggling and that you were too embarrassed to admit it. I thought you were actually okay with the idea of Oliver staying with me." I was livid hearing this. Brenda's deceit was far worse than I had imagined. Not only had she tried to take Oliver from us, but she had also been actively spreading lies and manipulating Rebecca to support her actions. It was a huge betrayal, not just to me, but to Rebecca as well. Rebecca went on to explain that she and her partner had been trying to have a child for the past 5 years without success. This situation had left her feeling particularly vulnerable and caught up in Brenda's scheme. She said, "I would never have tried to step in like this if I'd known the real situation. It hurt me to think that Brenda might have used my own hopes and struggles against you." Hearing Rebecca's side of the story made me realize how deep Brenda's manipulation had gone. I was relieved that Rebecca wasn't part of the scheme willingly, but sad that Brenda had caused so much unnecessary pain. I told Rebecca that we were both victims of Brenda's deceit and that there was no reason for her to feel guilty. "It's not your fault," I said. "Brenda has been crossing boundaries and manipulating everyone around her. You were misled, and I'm sorry you had to be caught up in this mess." Rebecca was grateful for my understanding and apologized for any confusion or hurt caused. We talked about how we could move forward from here. I assured her that I valued our relationship and that we needed to keep communication open to avoid any more misunderstandings. We both agreed that Brenda had to be the focal point of our concerns right now and that we needed to support each other to deal with her. In the aftermath of the meeting with Rebecca, I felt a bit of weight lift off my shoulders. At least now Rebecca and I were on the same page, and I no longer had to worry about Brenda's manipulation affecting our relationship. I felt more determined than ever to keep our family's boundaries strong and to protect Oliver from any further interference. Update 2. Brenda has crossed all lines. It's been 2 weeks since I last posted here, hoping things would settle down, but they haven't. In fact, they've gotten even worse. Yesterday, I went to pick up Oliver from his daycare, and to my shock, they told me he had already been picked up. I asked them who had taken him, and they casually mentioned that his grandma had come by. Brenda used to pick Oliver up before everything went down, so the daycare staff didn't think twice when she showed up again. I was livid. I told them to never let this happen again and stormed out of the center. I called Brenda immediately, and to my surprise, she actually answered. I demanded to know where she was and where my son was. She answered nonchalantly that she just missed Oliver and had picked him up to spend some time with him. She said she was at her house. I was beyond furious. I ended the call and drove straight to her place. When I arrived, Brenda was in her living room, sitting comfortably with Oliver playing nearby. I didn't waste any time. I grabbed Oliver and put him in the car, all while trying to keep my composure. I told Brenda bluntly that this was the final straw. I made it clear that we were done with her interfering in our lives and that she was never to see her grandchild again. Brenda tried to protest, saying she didn't mean to cause any worry and was just trying to be a loving grandmother. I didn't want to hear any more excuses. I told her that I didn't care about her intentions and that we would be filing for a restraining order. Her face fell, and she looked genuinely hurt, but I was done with her manipulative behavior. I left her house without another word. When Richard came home later that evening, I filled him in on what had happened. He was as outraged as I was and agreed that we needed to take serious legal action. We both felt that Brenda's audacity was escalating, and it was clear that she wasn't going to respect our boundaries unless there were real consequences. Richard suggested we definitely seek legal counsel and look into filing a restraining order as soon as possible. It's been incredibly draining dealing with Brenda's constant interference. Her actions have made it clear that she's unwilling to respect our family's boundaries without some form of legal deterrent. It's frustrating to have to take such drastic measures, but we both agree that it's necessary to protect our family and ensure that Brenda stops trying to control our lives. We're now in the process of finding a lawyer who can guide us through filing for a restraining order. We want to make sure that we're taking all the right steps to keep Brenda away and protect Oliver from any further attempts at manipulation or interference. The whole situation has made me feel like I'm constantly on edge, and it's hard to find any peace of mind knowing that Brenda might try something else. Update 3. Hi everyone, I wanted to give you all a quick update and let you know how things are going. First off, a huge thank you for all the support and advice you've shared. It's been really helpful during this stressful time. So, we've decided to move forward with filing a restraining order against Brenda. We're currently working with a lawyer to get everything in place. It's a bit of a process, but we're making progress. We want to make sure that we're taking all the necessary steps to protect our family and to send a clear message that Brenda's behavior is unacceptable. In the meantime, we're being extra vigilant. Brenda has been relentless with her attempts to reach out. She's been texting and calling, sending long apologies, angry rants, and everything in between. It's honestly exhausting dealing with her constant messages. Some of them are pleading for forgiveness, while others are accusatory, blaming us for the situation. This will be my last update on this situation. I'm hoping that the restraining order will help us finally put an end to Brenda's interference and allow us to move forward. I appreciate all the kind words and advice you've given. It made a big difference in how we're handling things, and thank you. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Parents kicked me out at 19, but now my fiancé wanted to invite my estranged parents to our wedding. My dad left the family and went no contact when I, 35M, was 4. My mom remarried and had 2 kids with my stepdad. My stepdad never treated me poorly, but always made clear that I was Dale, fake name, to him. He was not my dad. My mom never tried to fix the relationship and honestly loved her new family and always saw me as a burden. That's what I thought, at least, until it was confirmed after my freshman year of college when my mom asked me not to come home anymore. I blocked her after that phone call and have had no contact with her or my stepdad and half-brother since then. I do still speak to my half-sister, 25F, at her insistence, but that's my only contact. It took me a long time to deal with basically being kicked out of my family. I grew to be pretty independent and thought I'd live alone until I met my fiancée, 28F, 4 years ago. We have had a great relationship, and her family opened up and invited me in with open arms. She comes from a pretty typical suburban family, and they are great. Over the years, I've told her about my issues with my family. She has met my sister, and she never pushed for more until we started planning the wedding. When we started talking about who we would invite, I talked about friends from college and coworkers, and she kept saying I should invite my parents. At first, I thought she was just trying to gauge if I wanted to. I said I would not be inviting my parents. She said okay, but then brought it up again the next day. I calmly explained how much they hurt me, how growing up feeling you were unwanted and then having it confirmed at 19 really stunted my mental health. That over the years I've realized it's their problem, and if they ever want to solve it, then they can initiate, but I am in contact with my sister, and it is clear they're happy insisting I don't exist. It sucks, but it's their problem that they have thrust onto me. I can't be the one to solve it. I thought it had ended, but she has brought it up 2 more times. The last one was last night. We were about to start to save the dates, and she said, "Are you sure you don't want to invite your parents?" I feel like I might just invite them on my side, and I snapped. I told her, "We should probably just throw the invitations away because if you can't respect what I've been through, then I don't want to marry you." I then went to our bedroom and fumed for a while. She came in to try to talk to me, and I walked out, grabbed my keys, and left. I came back around 11 p.m. after hanging with friends and slept on the couch. She left for work without a word to me, and I don't know where we stand. Her behavior is unacceptable, but I feel I may have gone too far. What do you all think? Edit. Now, some people might think that my parents and Dale are secretly trying to reconcile or that they might eventually come around, but I honestly doubt it. I meet up with my sister every Thursday night, and we talk about everything. If there was even the slightest chance that my mom and Dale were interested in patching things up, my sister would have given me some kind of hint by now, but she hasn't. The truth is, they're perfectly content pretending that I don't exist, and I've come to terms with that. It's not something that started overnight, and it's not going to change anytime soon. Update 1. August 7th, 2024. I'm very overwhelmed by the response. So many thoughtful responses. Thank you to everyone who took the time to respond. I thought I would give an update. My fiancé normally gets home around 5:30 p.m., so after I was done working, I work from home. I waited for her to show up. Got very worried when it was 6 and she still wasn't home, but around 6:15, she shows up with my sister, which was a big surprise. While my sister and I connect every Thursday, we live 45 minutes away from each other, so her popping by is not normal. Both of them looked very anxious, so I was very confused. I asked them what was going on, and my sister just burst into tears, saying she's sorry. After like 5 minutes of her losing her, she starts talking about the family. So apparently when she told my mom and Dale that I got engaged, it started a rift between them, not because they cared about me, but about how my half-brother, which is 27, is still living at home, single with no steady job. If you're thinking, why they kicked you out at 19, but let him stay there past when he could rent a car, don't worry, I said it out loud. My mom apparently wants to do the same to my half-brother, but Dale won't let her, so they are currently separated with my mom living family and refusing to come back until my half-brother is out of the house. For some reason that defies all logic and reason, my sister thinks getting an invite to my wedding will bring the family together since it was my engagement that caused the rift. At this, I blew up a bit. I told her that my engagement had nothing to do with it, that their shitty parenting and poor relationship skills caused it, and don't put that on me. She cried even harder, and this time I was not going to console her. My fiancé is just sitting there the whole time, so while my sister is trying to get herself together, I question my fiancé about this. She also teared up a bit, but tells me my sister was telling her about how I always bring up the family on our Thursday and that deep down I wanted to repair the relationship. I asked how she could believe that when I was very clear that I was no contact with my family and had never mentioned wanting to be in contact. I told her that I tell her everything and would never hold back something like this without talking to her. She's always been my sounding board. When I switched jobs last year, we talked about it every night, and her advice mattered more than anyone else. She apologized and then wanted to show me her phone, specifically the messages between her and my sister. At this point, my sister perks up and asks her not to show the phone conversation, but my fiancé tells her she's trying to save her relationship. My sister has just been straight up lying about our Thursday conversations, saying how I was always talking about reconciling, how I would never admit it, but I'm partially at fault too, how I really want to see them all again. Every time I would tell my fiancé no, she would text my sister, and my sister would talk about how I just couldn't be open because I was embarrassed, just completely false. I would be perfectly happy never seeing any of them again. I can't believe my sister still sees them. At this, I tell my half-sister to leave and that Thursdays are canceled. My sister puts up a little bit of a fight, but I ignore her until she leaves. She keeps saying sorry over and over again, but honestly, I'm done with her. I've blocked her and will be no contact with her for the time being. A complete betrayal of my feelings and relationships. As for my fiancé and I am still very upset. She went behind my back with my sister, never asked me about it, let my sister manipulate her, and honestly hurt me. I told her I love her, but my trust is broken. We've agreed to go to couples therapy, and see if we can repair the relationship. I hope we can, but I'd say it's a toss-up for me. She's got a lot of work to do. Edit. I know some people might think I'm being too hard on my fiancé, given everything that's happened, but the truth is, we're both navigating this mess together. She was lied to and manipulated just as much as I was, and I've never claimed to be completely blameless in this situation. That's why we decided to go to couples counseling instead of handling this individually. It's important for us to work through this together as a team and rebuild that trust. We're both committed to figuring this out, and I'm not about to throw away a relationship with someone I truly love because of what other people did to us. Update 2. August 15th, 2024. A lot has happened. I'm just going to try and spill it in order for you all. So after my sister left, I told my fiancée I loved her, but I didn't trust her currently, that I felt she took my sister's side instead of mine. So I continued to sleep on the couch for a couple of nights. She was walking on eggshells around me, and I hated it, but I also just wasn't ready to forgive her. Then Friday night, after I hung out with friends, I came home and crashed on the couch. We had an innocuous conversation, but she did ask me to come to bed, and I told her I just wasn't ready. I woke up to pee at like 3 a.m., and she was sleeping on the floor next to me. I don't know why exactly, but it touched me deeply, and I cried a little bit. It meant so much to know that she wanted to be near me, even when I was being unloving. It really turned the tide. I woke up a few hours later, and she was making me breakfast. A surprise, as Saturday is usually my big breakfast-making day. We sat down to eat, and she was keeping the conversation light, still on eggshells, but I decided to tell her a story from my childhood. I told her how Dale used to make breakfast for the family, but never included me. I was older, so I slept in, and when I got up, there was rarely any breakfast left, and if there was, it was in the fridge and no one would eat with me. I told her how much Saturday brunch with us meant to me and how I hadn't really ever talked about it, and that wasn't fair to her. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. She apologized again, but I told her I didn't need it, that I forgave her, and while I still want to do couples therapy, because I think it'll help me express my family issues with her in a healthy way, I'm ready to send out the save the dates. I then asked her to massage my back because the couch was a nightmare to sleep on, and she knew I was serious. I don't love people touching me except my fiancé, and I had really not allowed it since the original incident. I know most of you did not want to forgive my fiancé, but I love her and she loves me. She made a huge mistake, but she's never experienced anything like what I went through, and she showed remorse. As for my sister, my mom reached out via a phone number that I didn't recognize and told me I should forgive my sister. I told her to screw off, and she just confirmed my sister really had never had a relationship with me at all, because if she knew me, she would know that contact with my mom would only make the situation worse. I then blocked the number. This happened Thursday evening. She tried to come by Sunday, but my fiancé and I were out. She left a note apologizing and saying she did not ask Mom to contact me, and she's sorry she did that. My fiancé wants nothing to do with my sister anymore, but left the decision up to me. I told her that she was my family, so if she didn't want her there, she wouldn't be there. A little jab, for sure, but she took it well and said she didn't want her there. We have been getting back to normal. It will still take time, and I think I may try individual therapy because as I was thinking about all the incidents, I'm not so sure the family situation is worse than even I have acknowledged, and it might be time to really deal with it. The save the dates were sent out yesterday, and everything is still on. I'm not sure I'll update again, but thank you all for letting me process and vent. Edit. Regarding my sister, no, we didn't send her a save the date. We made the decision to just cross her off the list entirely. I know this means my side of the aisle is going to look a little emptier compared to my fiancé, but honestly, I'm fine with that. In the end, my fiancé is the family I want to build my future with, and that's what matters most to me. As for the breakfast situation from my childhood, I know some people may not understand why I didn't just get up early and join in, but it's really not that simple. Growing up, dealing with Dale was always a challenge. Every time I tried to join in, I get passive-aggressive remarks like, "Looks like he's ruined daddy kid time" from Dale, along with eye rolls and annoyed glances. It was clear that I wasn't really wanted there, and that kind of treatment sticks with you. I get that some of you might have had great relationships with your parents or step-parents and can't relate, and that's great for you. But reliving these painful memories over and over just to explain myself is exhausting. I came here to share my story, seek advice, and vent, not to reopen old wounds for others' entertainment. This update was meant as a thank you to those who supported me, but honestly, now I'm second-guessing even sharing. I probably won't update again after this. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Found out I had a secret sister after my dad passed away, and she moved in next door to bond with me. Now she wants to hang out every day, and my grandma got mad when I asked for some space. So, my father passed away a couple of months back from a heart attack, and recently I found out about my half-sister from his will. My mother had passed away when I was in middle school, so everything that my father had was to be divided among 3 people: my grandmother, my sister, and me. For the record, I had no idea that this person existed until a couple of weeks ago when my lawyer was discussing it with us. But apparently, she was my age, and my father had been taking care of her financially ever since she was born. I'll refer to her as Erica for the purpose of the post. So, I am 31 years old, and she's around 28. After a long discussion with my dad's lawyer, I learned that my father had had an affair with a coworker for a couple of months, and he had wanted to end the affair, but then she got pregnant, and she wanted to keep the baby. So he decided to step up and be there for her as the father of the baby. He paid child support and would meet her occasionally on alternate weekends. We're not aware if my mother knew about it or not, but it doesn't make a difference anymore. Since the fact of the matter was that after so long, I found out that my dad had a lot of skeletons in his closet, even though he is gone now, and I should probably just forgive him because he was always there for me in spite of everything that I know now. It just feels like I didn't know him at all. It was a bummer for me, I'm being honest. I am aware that I should let it go, but it's just a very difficult thing to come to terms with. Anyway, when my dad's lawyer asked me if I wanted to have any sort of contact with Erica, I told him that I would think about it and let him know. I know it's not her fault, but I just did not want to see her. It's too soon, and everything is just too fresh. So, I did not want to look heartless, which is why I said I'd think about it. But in reality, I had made up my mind that I did not want to have any sort of relationship with this person, at least not so soon. My grandmother, however, was of the opinion that I should give it a chance and see how it feels like to have a sister. Even though she's not exactly my full sister, she would be my half-sister. And I'm not interested in getting to know her, but I did not say anything to my grandmother since she had agreed to see Erica already, and I could tell that she wanted to establish a relationship with this woman. That was a couple of weeks ago, I'd say almost 5 weeks back. And just 2 weeks ago, I received a shock when I realized that Erica had moved in next door and we were going to be neighbors now. I found out about this on the weekend. I was just having a lie-in, and then my bell started ringing. It was strange because I usually don't have visitors so early in the morning. But then I opened the door, and I found Erica standing outside. Now, obviously, when I had found out about her, I had stalked her on social media, and I knew how she looked. But I did not expect her to be standing right outside my house. And when I saw her, I literally had nothing to say because I was in shock. But she seemed very happy to see me and said that she had come all the way from New York, where she had been living for the past couple of years, to meet me and had even rented the house next door because she wanted to live close to me. She introduced herself and said that she and her boyfriend ran a PR agency for social media creators, and they had a bunch of money. And then it made sense how she could just afford to fly down here and rent a house just because she wanted to bond with me. After making some small talk with me, she decided to address the elephant in the room and said that while I'd never known about her, she had always known that I existed and had heard a lot about me from our father, but hadn't reached out because her dad had told her I wouldn't be ready, and he was right. I still wasn't. It still felt weird to address him as our dad. But anyway, I was very awkward around her in the first place because I was not expecting her. And on top of that, she seemed so excited to see me that I felt like a bad person for not wanting her around. Besides, she had come all the way from New York and had rented the house close to me when she could still be living with her boyfriend in their nice house, which I had seen on social media. So, she was doing all of this for me, and I didn't even want to be around her, which made me feel bad. So I decided to give it a shot and was nice to her. She told me that after I had told our dad's lawyer that I wanted some time to think about whether I wanted to have a relationship with her or not, he had refused to give her my address. But she had been talking to our grandmother, and apparently she was the one who had suggested this whole idea and even given her my contact info and my address so she could surprise me and so that we could bond with each other. I was not happy that my grandma had done that because she knew that I was still thinking these things over. I had not come to a decision yet, so she had no right to just give out my address like that. But anyway, after I spent that morning talking to Erica, I thought that I might give our relationship a chance because surely if she was putting in so much effort to connect with me, she couldn't be that bad of a person. Last week, when we met for the first time, I thought she was nice and sweet, and I thought that maybe we could get to know each other over the course of the next couple of months because she had said that she was sick of living in New York and their business was at a stage where it was pretty much running itself and everybody worked from home anyway. So she could just move down here to be closer to her mother and also to me and her grandma. I was a little intimidated by the thought of having to live with her as my neighbor, but I started feeling guilty about it almost immediately seeing how nice she was being to me. So I told her that it would be a fantastic idea. I had honestly believed that an early morning visit was just a one-time thing that day, since she had just landed the previous night and couldn't wait to see me, and I had assumed that when she said that she wanted to build a relationship with me, she meant that we could take our time and do it. But something really weird started happening, and she started showing up at my house every other day. Every morning she would show up with something for breakfast, and I would be forced to have breakfast with her, even though I'm really not a morning person, and I prefer being alone for my morning coffee, so that I don't have to talk to anybody, and I can just be with my thoughts for a while. But she would show up with either donuts or bagels and coffee for me, and then she would start talking every morning, and then I would leave for work just to get away from her. For the first couple of days, I tried to tolerate it because I thought she was just being nice. But then, after almost 4 days, she started showing up at my house after I came back home from work as well. That was a huge problem for me because I'm an oncologist, and I guess everybody knows that my line of work is pretty stressful. So I really need my time and space when I get back home. I can't just walk in and immediately start entertaining guests. But as soon as I got home, she would be at my door within almost 15 minutes. And I would be forced to welcome her inside and hang out with her. It was getting really exhausting for me, and I knew that she was just trying to be nice and build a relationship with me, but she couldn't just force her way into having a good relationship. She had to actually give me my space and respect my boundaries if she wanted us to get along well. 2 days ago, I finally got back home after an exceptionally exhausting day at work, and I just wanted to do nothing but curl up with a good book and a glass of wine and then go to sleep. Unfortunately, Erica showed up at my door once again just as I had returned home and had freshened up. I had already been pretty annoyed with her behavior and decided that I couldn't take any more of this. So I opened the door, and instead of inviting her inside like I usually do, I told her that I needed her to back off a little bit. My tone might have been a bit rough, but I was still trying to be as polite and civilized as I could because I was bone tired and I just didn't want to talk to anybody anyway. I told her to her face that I needed my space and I needed time to get along with her. We couldn't start being all sisterly within a matter of 2 weeks. It was not enough. She had known that I existed for her entire life, but I had just found out about her a couple of months ago, and it was not the same thing for me at all. So I needed her to respect that and respect my boundaries. I told her that she would still be welcome to hang out at my place on the weekends, but on the weekdays after I had come back home from work, I just did not have the energy to deal with anything, and I wanted to just relax. I told her that I hoped she would understand where I was coming from, and she said that she respected it. And after she left, I finally shut the door. Throughout that interaction, she had a poker face, so I couldn't exactly guess what she was feeling, but I knew that I tried to be as polite and nice as possible, so I didn't feel particularly guilty about what I had said. However, yesterday, I received a phone call from my grandmother, and she expressed how disappointed she was in me because of how I had treated Erica. She said that the poor girl was just trying to be nice to me and make up for lost time, which is why she was so insistent on spending as much time with me as she could, because in a couple of weeks, she would still have to go back to her boyfriend and wrap everything up in New York so she could move back here permanently. And she seemed really excited about having a sister finally. So she was just trying to get to know me, and instead of appreciating that, I had told her to back down. I thought that my grandmother was being a bit unfair, and I told her that I just wanted space, and I wanted to respect my boundaries. That was it. I was still open to having a relationship with her, just not one that was moving so fast. I tried to explain that to my grandmother, but she just said that I owed Erica an apology because apparently she was crushed after what I had said, and she felt like she had forced her company onto me when I did not appreciate it. Here is the thing. I can understand why Erica would not understand why I said what I said, since it's not really been that long that she has known me. But my grandmother has known me for my entire life, and I felt like at least she should understand where I'm coming from. Everyone who knows me knows that I am a total introvert, and I really don't like spending time with people. I would much rather be on my own, and it's not a thing about being superior. I just like spending time by myself and occasionally with my friends. I'm not in a place where I can call her my friend because, honestly, she's been nice to me, but whenever she comes over, she just talks about herself and her life, and it gets kind of boring after a while because I don't even get to talk. I don't understand how she expects to get to know me better if she is doing all the talking. But anyway, that's not the point right now. I am an introvert, and I'm in my 30s right now. I really just need my peace and quiet, and I would expect my grandmother to understand that. Instead, we ended up getting into a fight over the phone because of this. Since she had taken a very accusatory tone with me and was acting like I was trying to hurt Erica on purpose, she expected me to apologize for what I said, and I told her that I was not apologizing for having boundaries. So she told me that since I was intent on being on my own, she thought it would be for the best if she cut me off as well, since she didn't want to bother me too much. I thought that it was very hurtful since she was basically threatening to cut me off if I did not play nice with Erica, even though she was kind of getting on my nerves. But now I've thought about it, and I don't know what to believe anymore. At the end of the day, Erica was actually just trying to be nice to me, and I'm the one who slammed that door shut. And after that fight with my grandmother, I feel like even more of a jerk for what I did. I just don't know what to feel anymore. But at the same time, I feel like somewhere my actions are justified. I don't want to speak to any of my friends about this at the moment because I need an unbiased and objective opinion, and that's why I'm on Reddit, I guess. So, AITA for telling my half-sister to back off and telling her that I need my space and I can't hang out with her every day. Update 1. So after going through the comments, I came to the conclusion that what I did was the right thing to do. I need my space and time to process everything that I have learned. I can't do that if she keeps showing up at my door every single day. So I'm sticking to my decision, and I've told my grandmother that I'm not going to talk to Erica and apologize to her. I don't even have anything to apologize for in the first place. I was pretty nice to Erica, as I had said. Anyway, it has been a couple of days, and Erica has not shown up at my house ever since I told her to back off. And after that last conversation that I had with my grandmother, she hasn't spoken to me either. I guess she's not going to talk to me until I apologize to Erica, and that's not going to happen. We are at a dead end right now. Last evening, I was pretty sure that when I came back home from work, I saw my grandmother leaving Erica's house. She just lived a couple of houses away. We can mostly just walk to each other's places. And I'm pretty sure that when I entered my house, I saw her from my window, and I realized that she was probably around to visit Erica, and not me. I feel bad that this is happening since I'm really close to my grandma. My dad just passed away recently. I can't deal with the fact that she's trying to give me the cold shoulder now. But I was the one who said that I wanted some peace and quiet and time to myself, so I guess I can't force her to talk to me. I guess that just sucks that I had actually expected her to understand where I was coming from, because she has known me ever since I was a child. But now it seems like she's pretty decisive about whose side she is on, even though she didn't even need to pick sides. She could have just respected my opinion and let it be. I don't mean to be whiny, but I also feel like Erica had no reason to complain about this to my grandmother because I've been as nice as I possibly could to her. But from what my grandmother told me, Erica had made it sound like I had been very curt and harsh with her. Anyway, I can't force people to understand me and respect my opinions. So if they want to pretend that I'm the villain just for having boundaries, they are free to do so. At least I have my own space now, and I can come back home and relax on my own instead of having to entertain guests as soon as I wake up, as soon as I return from work. At least that's one good thing that has come out of all of this. Update 2. 2 weeks ago, I posted my last update. Since then, nothing much has really happened. Erica had stopped visiting me, and a couple of days back, I saw her getting into a cab with some of her stuff. It was the weekend, and I was taking a walk around the neighborhood like I usually do on the mornings of my weekends. I couldn't help but ask her where she was headed, and she told me she was going to the airport because she was going back to New York for a couple of days so she could wrap everything up and come back here with her boyfriend. When she spoke to me, her tone was very different from earlier, and I try not to feel weird about it, but I kind of did. She was very short with me, and I felt a bit taken aback. But then I figured that she did not like the fact that I had tried to draw a line, and while she did do it, she did not appreciate it. That was her call to make. I can't exactly judge her for that. If she doesn't like me anymore and thinks that I'm the bad guy for saying what I did, I can't help it. I haven't even been able to speak to my grandmother ever since the last phone call that we had because I haven't apologized to Erica. And now I feel like I did the right thing because this morning my grandmother showed up at my place. I thought that she was here to finally sort things out, and I was kind of happy. But then she said that she was here to discuss my behavior with me. I was very confused about what she meant until she said that she had been thinking about it, and she believed that I needed a therapist so that I could process my emotions and let them out in a healthy way instead of isolating myself from people who care about me. That was a pretty bizarre thing to say because I had not isolated myself from anybody. All I had done was tell Erica that I did not want to see her every single day, but I was still open to talking to her grandmother and keeping in touch with her. She was who was shutting me out. And as for isolating myself, I don't think I'm doing that at all. I hang out with my coworkers during lunchtime, and occasionally I will meet up with my friends, and that's how it has been since forever. I just don't like going out of the house to hang out with people or having people over every single day. I think that's a pretty normal thing to do, and I don't need a therapist for that. I got a bit offended when she said that, and I told her that I was perfectly healthy and normal, so I didn't need her to take me to a therapist. Besides, if I had to, I would probably prefer going because I wanted to deal with the loss of my father, and not because she thought that I was being weird, just because I did not want to hang out with my sister, who I didn't even know existed until a couple of weeks ago, just by the way. And then my grandmother said that she strongly believed that speaking to a mental health professional would do me a world of good because the way that I was acting was just not right, and she was getting worried about me. So I asked her if she was really worried about me. Then why hadn't she spoken to me all these days? And then she told me that she had wanted me to reach out to her and also apologize to Erica like she had told me earlier, but since I was too stubborn to do any of that, she had to come and talk to me herself. And she had started believing that since my father had passed away, I had probably started thinking of Erica as the villain. It was so ridiculous because I did not think badly of Erica. I just wanted some space from her. And no matter how hard I tried to explain that to her, she just wouldn't get it. On top of that, she started talking about how concerned she was about me and said that if I continued acting like this, I would be left with nobody in the end. I finally snapped after that and told her that I pretty much had nobody from my family left to count on since both my parents were gone now, and she too believed that I needed help but wasn't willing to actually talk to me, so I wasn't too worried about being on my own anymore. Then I told her that I had to leave for work and I was getting late, so she left, and that was it. I had a pretty exhausting day at work as well, because I was in such a terrible mood. I feel like both my grandmother and Erica are taking things too far and are trying to make me feel guilty for no reason. Today I was feeling so annoyed that I finally ended up speaking to a couple of my friends about what had happened, and I told them everything. After listening to me, most of them were of the opinion that I did not do anything wrong. I was nice to everybody, but I just made it clear that I needed some space. There's nothing bad about it. And if somebody feels offended by that, they don't deserve a place in my life at all. And if my grandmother thinks that there's something wrong with me mentally, she can go on with that belief and continue to make me seem like the bad guy. I really don't care anymore because I'm done dealing with such immature and weird people. Update 3. 3 days have passed since my last update, and a lot of things have happened since then. Like I had said, my grandmother wanted me to speak to a therapist so I could sort out my feelings, even though I was pretty clear about what I had wanted anyway. She did not say anything to me that day, but the next day, she started texting me again and sent me a list of therapists around me, and even ones who would conduct therapy sessions online. The implication that there had to be something wrong with me for not wanting to entertain Erica every day was getting on my nerves. So I didn't block her, but I muted all her notifications, and I haven't responded to her since. And after what I just found out, I hardly think that I will anyway. Yesterday, while I was at work, my dad's lawyer called me and said that he wanted to discuss something with me. So we got on a call a couple of minutes later, and he told me that my dad's affair partner from earlier had said that she wanted to speak to me. Initially, he had told me that Erica's mother had no interest in speaking to me, but Erica wanted to build a relationship with us. So now her sudden change of heart came as a surprise to me. I thought that it would have something to do with my behavior with Erica, and I thought that she was going to berate me just the same way that my grandmother had, and I really didn't need any more of that. So my first impulse was to say no because I really didn't want any more drama. But then my dad's lawyer said that he thought that I should speak to her since, when she had called him, she said that it was pretty urgent and she needed to discuss it with me immediately. That got me thinking, and I told him to give her my phone number so she could call me. Half an hour later, she finally called me up, and after introducing herself, she came straight to the point. She told me that she and her daughter had always known about me, and she was sorry about the passing of my father. But she had recently found out from Erica that I thought my grandmother had no idea about the affair until recently, and I believe that she had found out at the same time as I did. She wanted me to know that my grandmother had known about all of this and had been a very active part of their life so far. She told me that my grandmother was lying to me about everything, and when she found out about it, she decided that she couldn't keep her mouth shut about it because she thought it was wrong on several levels. When she told me all of this, I felt incredibly betrayed because my grandmother had known that I had a sister and had never bothered to tell me anything. And on top of that, I have to hand it to her, she was a great actress because she didn't even let me guess that she might have known Erica just as long as she had known me. Erica, too, had lied to me about everything. But I was not as hurt about that as I was about my grandmother lying to me, because I had barely known her. I thanked Erica's mother for telling me the truth, and then I hung up. After this, I was pretty determined never to speak to my grandmother or Erica ever again, because both of them knew the truth, and I had been kept in the dark. I think that if anybody really needs therapy, it's the two of them and not me. It's very obvious that the two of them are a team, and I'm not. And everything makes sense now. So while I have still not blocked either of them, I'm definitely going to make sure that I don't have to speak to them again. I'm still trying to process all of this and come to terms with it. I guess that I was right when I said I pretty much don't have anybody in my family that I can count on. It sucks that literally everybody I have known has been lying to me for so long, and wouldn't be surprised if I found out that my mother had also known about the affair. Anyway, anybody who wants a summary of what I have said, it's basically that I have a family of liars, and I know that I can't trust anybody ever again. Update 4. Hi. A couple of months have passed since my last update. I have remained in no contact with my grandmother and Erica. She lives right next door with her boyfriend, but we don't even say hi to each other, and I'm fine with that. In fact, I actually pray for that because all of them are liars, and I don't even want to have to see them. But unfortunately, she already rented that house, and I don't have a say in it. My grandmother visits Erica quite frequently, and she hasn't bothered to reach out to me after I cut her off a couple of months back after I found out the truth about her. Initially, I used to feel really bad about it because I felt like I had no family left. But honestly, after a while, I came to terms with it. I realized that having no family would be better than having the kind of family who lies to you and never respects you. At least I have my friends with me, and I know for a fact that they're always going to be there for me. So far, they're the only people who I've been able to count on. My life is honestly going great right now, and I'm cool with everything that has happened. I'm willing to put the past in the past and move on. Now on to the next story. Story 8. My wife said she'd frame me for something after I discovered her affair, so I installed cameras that exposed her lies and helped me win everything in divorce. A few days ago, my kids found a little bunny and brought it home, and they were begging us to keep it. But we can't keep a wild rabbit and already have several pets. The bunny was big enough to fend for itself, and I tried to nicely tell my kids that it needs to go back home to its family. They were sad but agreed to take it back. However, I was busy with work and couldn't go with them, so my wife went. I told her to take the bunny to some thorn bushes at the end of the property and let it go there because that's the safest place to do it. We live in a country area ripe with predators. Well, I went back to work, but a little while later, my kids came running back into the house, loudly crying, with my wife trailing after and trying to calm them down and tell them it's not so bad. I asked what happened, and my elder said that Mama made them let the bunny go in the middle of the yard and a hawk took it. They even described the poor bunny's screams. I was mortified and then angry at my wife for not letting it go the way I'd advised. She defended herself and said it was just a bunny. The kids will get over it. But I said that was absolutely wrong, and I warned her of predators, and now our kids had to see that poor bunny get carried away by a hawk. Both of our kids shut themselves in their rooms and stopped talking to their mother for days, and when she tries to talk to them, they call her the bunny killer. I have tried to mediate, but my kids are still mad, and I'm still mad at my wife for how things went down. She's angry with me for not having her back and said as husband and wife, we're always supposed to support one another. But we got into an argument where I pointed out numerous times she has not had my back. She started crying too and has gone off to our room to pout. I'm thinking I screwed up now, so a friend told me to ask here. Edit 1. Yes, I understand hawks need to eat too, and they're all over our area. I just didn't want my kids to see something so young. They are 4 and 5 years old. I grew up country boy and my wife was a city girl, and when I was growing up, any similar situation with a wild critter that was caught, we'd try to let go in a place where it'd have a fighting chance. Edit 2. I did not yell at my wife. Where exactly in my post does it say I did that? I admonished her, yes, but I didn't yell, not even when we argued later on. We did that in whispers so the kids wouldn't hear us. And I couldn't go with them to release the bunny because I couldn't get away from my office. I work from home half the week and have to be near the phone at all times to answer a call while on the clock, unless on my lunch break. I also never once called my wife the BK nickname. Our kids are calling her after what happened with the bunny, and I've tried to make them stop. I will not call my wife such a thing. It's degrading, and I'd be acting like a bully. Edit 3. Apologies for so many edits, but my children were not playing in the yard unsupervised. My wife is a stay-at-home mom and was with them when they found the bunny. They came running back to the house with it, and I had to tell them it needed to be let go. Edit 4. I can't believe I'm having to make another edit, but people keep pointing something out. No, this wasn't copied from some online video. I'm not seeing said video, but I don't doubt it exists. But hawks take small animals all the time. So, is it really so surprising that this situation would happen to some people other than those who recorded a video of the same kind of situation? I certainly don't think so. And my property is almost entirely grassy flatland, save for the house and one tree. I own 4 acres. The grass was last mowed on Sunday, so it was pretty short. That poor bunny may as well have had a target on its back, because hawks are circling the area all the time. I've been battling hawks since I was a kid guarding baby chicks with my old pellet gun. Little bunnies are practically one of their favorite things to grab, hence me telling my wife to let the bunny go in the bushes. Edit 5. I'm so damn sick and tired of people saying hawks got to eat too, or circle of life, or UDA for defying nature. When I was a kid, I had to protect animals from hawks for my grandparents. Farmers have a right to protect their animals from predators too. We weren't just going to let the hawks come in and take all the baby chicks they wanted, which they would have done daily. Yes, I was out there with a pellet gun, but that only deterred the hawks more than anything. I never actually shot one down. Oh yes, I hit a few, but barely. All it ever did was make them turn tail and fly away. And I haven't shot at a hawk in 25 years. I never enjoyed shooting anything alive. My grandpa was the one out there with real guns taking down hawks and coyotes. But I grew up intimately familiar with hawks taking small animals. Hawks have no problem finding food all over our area, but they are opportunists, as are most predators, hence why I wanted to let the bunny go in the bushes. But as I say it in a prior edit, I could not leave my desk, which so many people still don't seem to understand or did not bother to read. Update 1. Not sure if this is the right up, but I can't think of anywhere else to post this. For those who remember me, I'm the guy whose wife made our kids release a wild bunny in the middle of the yard after I advised her to have the kids take it to the bushes to release it safely. A hawk took the bunny right in front of both of our children, 4 and 5 years old at the time, and they freaked out on their mother, then came running back to me in tears. Our kids started calling their mother the Bunny Slaughter. That name seems appropriate now, and other people called her that as well after her affair got out. What happened with that poor bunny is ancient history compared to what I have to tell now. I'm speaking as a free man after finishing divorce a couple of months ago. This is going to be pretty long and complicated, so buckle up. Edit. AP stands for a fair partner. Apologies for not making that clear sooner. I did show my wife my original Reddit post, and she was very angry with me. So much so it caused a bad fight, and after it, I got the silent treatment for another week. I tried to make my kids stop mistreating their mother after the bunny incident, even with being punished by small groundings and timeouts. But the BS nickname kept coming back every time our kids got angry with their mother. My wife let up on her cold shoulder routine after a couple of weeks and conceded she should have listened to me about the bunny and should have taken to the bushes like I said. She claimed that she just felt like she needed to defend herself because she didn't want to be wrong. I accepted that apology and apologized myself for making the Reddit post. I wanted us to go to marriage counseling, but she refused. She acted like there was nothing wrong with our marriage, and I decided not to push the issue further since things were seemingly getting along better. But after a few weeks, my eldest came to me saying she wanted to tell me something. There was another reason why she was so mad at her mother than just the bunny, but she was scared to tell me. I comforted her and told her she could tell me anything. Well, what she said shocked me and changed everything in an instant. She said that for months, Mama had been bringing a man over some Saturdays I was at work and had referred to him as her special friend. She got our kids to keep quiet about it by various means of bribery, but my eldest realized that something was very wrong with it and spent some time working up the courage to tell me. Kids know things and pick up on stuff very quickly. I really dislike it when people dismiss those facts. I had noticed my wife acting a bit differently lately. She had been more short with everyone, especially the kids. I tried talking to her about it when I showed her my first post, and she just went off on me about any little thing she could think of, insulted my appearance, my character, my habits, even my side of the family. She even brought up that I used to smoke. I quit over 10 years ago. Then she resorted to locking me out of our bedroom and crying so loud you could hear it all over the house. So when my eldest came to me, I ended up putting two and two together. She was cheating, and her behavior was very similar to the mood swings she had while pregnant with both of our children. Similar, I say, because it was even worse. From what I've gathered searching online and what friends and even a counselor have told me, my wife was both very moody from hormones and projecting because of her infidelity. I can't claim to be an expert in psychology, but it does seem to make sense. I wanted it to all be a misunderstanding, but I quickly ordered and set up a few hidden cameras without anyone knowing. I had them delivered to my work just so no one at home would see them. Then I set them up on a day my wife went out to have a girls' night with her friends. It was very easy to hook them up and connect them to the Wi-Fi. In just a few short hours, I could monitor every part of the house from my home PC, laptop, and work PC. At first, I worried I might have been going overboard. I thought if it turned out I was wrong, then I could remove the cameras and no one would ever know. But no, my worst fears were confirmed as I got plenty of evidence in just the first week. The man my wife has taken as an AP is a former colleague of hers. I remembered him quite well as they seemed close with my wife whenever I met him at various functions. My wife quit her job years ago to be a full-time mom after getting pregnant with our first. It was a mutual decision for us both at the time. My wife stayed connected with her former coworkers as they were her best friends, but not anymore. What I'm about to tell you has pretty much made her hated by everyone. Firstly, the AP is younger than my wife by about a decade. She mentored him at her former job to fill her position when she left, and the two of them stayed close, very close. My wife and I are both over 40, but you wouldn't know it from looking at her. She's positively stunning. She got mistaken for someone in their 20s quite a lot, and I guess she capitalized on that. I ended up confiding to my sister about what was going on and showed her the footage from the nanny cams. She told me she'd suspected for a while and said she'd seen my wife once at a local bar getting a bit too close with a man that wasn't me. But they never kissed or anything while she was watching, just lots of touching on the shoulders and lower back. And since she wasn't sure, she didn't tell me sooner. I ended up ordering a GPS tracker as well, and after I got it working, I hid it in the trunk of my wife's car. My sister and her husband agreed to help me and followed the tracker on my wife's next supposed night out with friends. She went to a completely different place 20 miles further away than where she usually goes, and from there, she met up with AP. My sister and brother-in-law observed them for some time from their car and noticed AP kept rubbing her belly while they were talking, and they recorded video of this too. When I saw the footage, I knew she had to be pregnant with his baby since she was so moody at home. My sister and Bill had to calm me down because I turned into a complete mess. I wanted to self-medicate with alcohol, but my sister very correctly told me that drinking was the worst thing I could do at the moment. Later, I decided to take a leave from work, but told my wife I was actually going to be on a business trip. She couldn't have been more excited about it, and didn't try very hard to hide her glee that I'd be leaving for a while. Who is this woman? She's certainly not the one I married almost 20 years ago, right? Did someone who looks exactly like her just take her place one day? Is she an alien from the pod people? Did I ever really know her? The more I thought about it, the less it made sense to me. So my end conclusion was that trying to make sense of anything wouldn't do me any good. I had cameras all over the house, and my sister and brother-in-law agreed to take my kids for a few days because they love visiting Annie and Uncle in the city. This gave my wife the exact opening she wanted. She called AP only a few hours after I left, and he showed up that evening to spend the night. I won't go into any detail about what they did around the house. You can fill in those details yourselves. But on top of all that, they were joking about me continuously. They openly talked about their baby and how they needed to figure out what to do before her belly starts to show, as she was already over 3 months along by then, and there was no way it could be passed off as mine. AP is a different race from me, so it'd be pretty easy to tell the baby wouldn't be mine from birth. My wife brushed AP's concerns aside and said that they had months to figure it out. Then she shamelessly admitted this wasn't even her first affair, as she'd slept with another man when she was 29. She told AP she was sick of having to act like the good housewife and was tired of being around a boring man like myself that made her feel old. And if it wasn't for me being so financially stable, she'd have left me long ago. Even her AP asked her about what her plan is with our kids. Her exact words were, "He can have them." She didn't even want to be around our kids anymore because she thought they liked me better and she'd soon be having her do-over baby anyway. I very nearly threw the laptop on the floor in my motel room because I was so disgusted, but I contained myself, drank a few beers from a six-pack, got some dinner at a diner, then watched a movie. After that, I spent half the night just laying in bed and thinking till I finally fell asleep. I thought I knew my wife so well. I loved her and would have given her all I had to give, but in the end, some people are just evil and you can never really know who they are till they reveal their true self. I made up my mind right then to destroy her in a divorce. I'm normally a very kind and calm man, but get me angry enough and I can become your worst nightmare. I went to see a law firm for divorce lawyers the very next day and asked for the meanest lawyer they had. I live in an at-fault state, so my wife was screwed the moment I had her affair on camera. The lawyer was initially apprehensive that I wanted to hire him so quickly until I explained the situation in more detail, and I even showed him some of the video footage. That's when he got a devilish grin and we shook hands. He said he'd start right away because this was the kind of case divorce lawyers love to dig their teeth into. I had my wife serve a few weeks later on a day. I was working from home and the kids were in school, the eldest in kindergarten and the youngest in preschool. The papers were delivered right to my wife's hands by the local sheriff. The cameras caught it all. She looked scared while she opened the envelope, read the contents, and then lost her mind. She came running into my office to scream at me, but I remained cool and calm the whole time. I was already completely mentally checked out of our marriage. My wife wanted to argue. I just told her I'd made up my mind and I wanted her out of my house. I'm the only one who's ever paid into the mortgage. She screamed at me that I can't do this to her and then actually threatened to tell people I'd beat her if I take her to court and get me fired from my job to boot. I told her to go right ahead and make up any lie she wants. It won't help her. It's not like she wasn't planning on screwing me over since she's pregnant with her AP's baby anyway. She went wide-eyed and asked me how much I knew. I just said I knew enough and told her once again that I wanted her to leave. She refused and said it was as much her house as it was mine, then locked herself in the bedroom again. I saw on the bedroom cameras her having a meltdown and then pulling out her phone and calling police. She was acting like she was in complete panic, but there was a huge smile on her face while she was doing it. She was quite the actress. I'd have believed that performance over the phone in a heartbeat if I didn't already know she was a liar. I waited for police with the front door wide open and told them to come right in when they arrived. They were initially hot-blooded and ready for a showdown, but the house was clean and there were no signs of any sort of fight. My wife came running out of the bedroom and grabbed the vest of one of the officers while crying and saying I was a maniac. I asked one of the other officers to let me show them evidence of what was really going on, and he agreed, which really startled my wife, as she was not aware that I'd recorded her. I showed the officer the footage from the cameras on a laptop of my wife, saying she'd make stuff up to ruin my life, and then the footage from the living room after she ran out of my office and into the master bedroom down the hall, and then the footage from the camera in the bedroom of her calling the police and lying. I'd recorded it all, and from multiple angles no less. And even though she claimed to the police I'd hit her, there was not only no marks on her, but the cameras all around the house showed a completely different story. Then I handed the police a thumb drive and said it had all the video footage they needed of her calling them under false pretenses. My wife, even in the face of all this, stuck to her lie of saying I was an abuser and even tried to say the recordings were illegal and therefore inadmissible. But I pointed out they are legal because they were security cameras inside of my own home and not recorded in public. My wife looked to the police and told them to do something, to which they did. She was the one put in handcuffs, and she started bawling like a child. I could only sit there shaking my head. This was once the woman I'd loved for so many years. I thought she was a wonderful, intelligent, and endearing person. I couldn't have been more wrong. As the police took her away, she screamed that they couldn't do this to her, but didn't fight back much. Otherwise, resisting arrest would have been added to her charges. I then shut down all her credit cards that were in my name and stopped any future payments into the joint bank account, so she had to use entirely her own money to bail herself out of jail. She'd saved plenty all those years. She was still working while the mortgage was only on me, so she was anything but broke. She came back for her car, which I'd taken the liberty of packing a few of her suitcases full of her clothes and some other things and left the key on the seat, so she wasn't even able to come back into the house. My wife's parents did come to speak to me a day after she bailed herself out of jail. Initially, they only had the backwards story she told them, which was basically the same thing she tried to tell police. Her father especially was ready to attack me. Old as he is, he's big and strong. But when I asked him if he knew anything about my wife's affair or her pregnancy, he looked very surprised and gave me the chance to explain myself. I pulled out the laptop again to show my in-laws what I recorded. When they found out the truth, they were disgusted and said that they couldn't believe this person was their daughter. They apologized to me and said they'd keep in touch to help out with my kids. Then they called my wife on speaker right in front of me and confronted her about her lies. She tried to double down till they said they were with me right then and saw the recordings. They knew everything and wanted her out of their house immediately. She tried to backpedal, but my in-laws said they did not raise her to be a selfish adulteress that would try to frame her own husband, and she was no longer their daughter. They disowned her over the phone right then and there, and then hung up before my wife could say anything else. She tried to call back, but they ignored her every attempt. And when they got home, not only was she gone, but she destroyed several things around their house, which my mother-in-law was in tears about. I still consider my ex-parents my in-laws because they still drop by from time to see their grandchildren, but my ex is effectively dead to us all. My wife later came back with her AP in tow to pack her things. AP wouldn't even come in the house, and my wife refused to speak a word to me while gathering her remaining things. She knew there were cameras everywhere, and she'd damn herself more if she tried anything else. I wasn't alone either, as my sister and brother-in-law were there to help keep an eye on her. Brother-in-law made sure to keep his eye on AP from the window. My wife was still packing when the kids got home, and she made no attempt to speak to either of them, not even when our youngest cried for her. Before leaving, she did take a few of the photos we had of each other from our wedding off the wall and threw them on the floor to break them. I think she was expecting a reaction out of me because of the way she looked at me while doing it, but since I didn't say anything, she just took the last of her bags and walked out the door. After she was gone, I had to call my elderly mother to come stay with me for a while because I couldn't take care of my kids alone. I couldn't take a lot of time off work, and I didn't have a lot of daycare options either. I also ordered DNA tests for my kids. I was sure they were mine, but several people told me that just in case, I had to know. Thankfully, yes, both of my children are mine, and yes, I did get tested for STI, and I'm clean, so no worries there. About a week later, my wife showed back up at my door saying that she would agree to a clean divorce if I did as well, meaning she'd have gotten half of everything if I had agreed. But I said no to her face. There was some fighting back and forth, and she more or less admitted to finding out the law in this state was not on her side. We met, got engaged, got married, and lived our whole lives in this state. There was no way she could get out of taking a major loss unless I agreed to settle, which I did not. Then I said that she betrayed me, our kids, her parents, and practically everyone by having an affair. Then I slammed the door in her face. She left quietly, and I didn't see her again till court a few months later. In divorce court, my wife was visibly quite pregnant by then, and she'd gotten a lawyer. AP was also nowhere to be seen. I expected her to lie to the judge, which she started to a few times, but I had enough video evidence to refute any lies, so she really didn't stand a chance. So instead, she tried to drag out the divorce by simply refusing to cooperate and making various demands. She wanted most of my savings for starters, and she wanted a long list of other things I own, and she wanted me to buy out of her half of the house, even though she never paid into it. On my end, I was pushing for full custody of the kids and to get her name off the house deed. I had the video evidence to back up how she said she didn't really care for our children anymore too, and how she said she would make up lies. My wife tried to stall and repeatedly change her demands, but the judge didn't let her keep dragging things out. This being an at-fault state meant that she was entitled to very little since she was the adulterer, and her attempting to frame me only made her case even worse. In the end, she lost all custody of our kids and walked away with nothing more than her belongings. What could be considered a fair financial settlement considering the circumstances and the car I'd previously bought for her. The title was in my name, but I signed it over without a care as part of the settlement. She'd made no attempt to even speak to our kids during the entire divorce anyway, so I got full custody. The house is entirely mine now, and I'm completely free of her. My now ex-wife did try to keep up with her lies about me to others before and during the divorce, but my sister spread word around of my wife's infidelity, and soon all mutual friends cut her off when they realized who was telling the truth. She and her AP left town together after the divorce ended. I heard AP wasn't fired, but he was transferred. Where, I don't know, but I do know my ex had to go with him. They could have transferred him and my ex to freeze in Greenland for all I care. I'm just happy they've both left. My ex should have had her do-over baby by now, and I hope it was worth it to her. This is not what I thought I'd be posting to Reddit after just talking about my wife releasing a bunny where a hawk could get it. But many of the comments I previously got about how my wife was acting made me realize I should have been paying attention to the red flags long ago. I guess I just kept rose-tinted glasses on for our entire marriage, but it's all over now. Thank you to any readers who made it through this. I know it was a lot to read, but this is my life. Edit. I got my ex's name off the house deed because all bank records that could be dug up showed only I ever paid into it. My ex was also repeatedly argumentative with a judge, and in an at-fault state, being a confirmed cheater puts you in a world of trouble during a divorce. It's comparable to having a signed prep against you. And when I said I got the meanest lawyer at the firm I went to, I meant it. The man was like a bear and a shark. The payout my wife got was $60,000, and she also got the car I bought new for her a couple of years ago that cost me $50,000. The car was paid off, and I transferred the title to her. My ex was also still offered partial custody of our children, but since the video of her saying she didn't care about them anymore had been seen, she didn't bother to have any custody and willingly relinquished all rights to our kids when she realized she couldn't get her way. And for those who might think police wouldn't have arrested my ex for lying, think again. The police here don't mess around, and my ex, with a sociopathic grin on her face, tried to frame me as a wife beater. That's plenty grounds for arrest. Now on to the next story. Story 9. My wife and I recently encountered a significant issue with her parents because they used X39 patches on our daughter without our consent. I know how the title sounds, but please bear with me. Throw away for obvious reasons. I, 24, and my wife, 24, recently had our daughter in July. She is the best thing to ever happen to my wife and we couldn't be more thrilled to have our little bundle of joy. She recently got sick while staying with her grandparents, my in-laws, while my wife and I took a trip for work. For context, my in-laws are really big into LifeWave X39. It's a patch that supposedly helps regrow stem cells by reflecting light rays back into your body, allowing your body to produce more stem cells to fight off diseases and sickness. If you ask me, it sounds like snake oil, and my wife agrees, calling it a pyramid scheme. The only way to get said patches is by spending well over $1,000, and then you're tasked with selling the patches yourself. It's essentially some multi-level marketing product where the more patches you sell, the more money you make, falling right in line with my wife's comparison to a pyramid scheme. But MLMs are somehow legal. Now, I've tried doing research on X39, and the only comments I've seen praise said product are brand new accounts never used before or after, where their entire profile is dedicated to shilling out for LifeWave X39. In my own research, they appear to just be overpriced stickers. They contain no medication, no special UV rays, or anything of the sort. They're literally just an overpriced sticker with an air bubble. But my wife and I have made it very clear that we wanted no part in X39, nor did we want our daughter to have it. Even if it's fake, we wanted no part in it. And on the off chance it did something, I didn't want our daughter to be used as their lab rat or guinea pig. Now, before we left our daughter with my in-laws, we provided them with some infant medication just in case she got sick. Can never be too safe, you know? Well, we returned home from the work trip early because our daughter wasn't getting any better, so we picked her up and went home. We were going to give her a bath. In the process of taking her jacket off, we found an X39 patch on her arm. Upon finding it, we immediately called her parents and demanded to know why she had a patch on her. Her parents tried saying that it's safe for the baby. We even ordered the ones for ages 7 and younger, and that it's practically medication, their words, which still didn't answer our question. So my wife checked the go bag, and the Motrin we gave them was, while it was used, not used very much at all. Her parents tried claiming that someone else in their group or whatever gave it to their son, and they got better in a week. Point is, we didn't buy it, nor did we care. We've made it abundantly clear that we wanted nothing to do with X39, and we didn't want our daughter to be a part of it. They failed to listen. My wife was on the phone with them for over an hour, and while I don't know the exact length the conversation went to, I know it at least ended with her screaming, "Going to see my daughter again, and if you attempt to come to my house, we will call the police," before hanging up. That was 3 days ago now, and we've had several missed calls from family members, her parents, her siblings, and even family friends, all saying that we overreacted and they were just trying to help. Maybe we overreacted, but we wanted nothing to do with that. And despite making it clear, they went against our wishes and did it anyway. And instead of giving my daughter actual medication, they tried to give her some placebo patch. Her parents tried claiming that we're stopping them from seeing their only grandchild over something so small. But we didn't want to hear it. Now for some comments. Comment 1. I kind of think you ought to for leaving your sick baby to go out of town. Op. We didn't leave a sick baby to go out of town. We left her with her grandparents while she was fine. We only packed Motrin because, as I stated in my post, you can never be too careful. She got sick while we were out of town, not before. Comment 2. You say that like it's snake oil. Like it's just as bad as the X39. Was it Advil and cough syrup? Or just a generic bottle that you wrote infant medication on? You expect us to believe that you gave the medication just in case she got sick and then she immediately got sick? Come on, this sounds like total BS. Op. Her grandparents don't exactly have children medication laying around. We packed her Motrin, which I quite literally stated later in the post had you read it. Not some generic bottle or snake oil. And just as bad, nor do they have the ability to really go anywhere. They live a good 30 to 40 minutes outside of any nearby town. The drive to and from her parents is a grand whole hour drive from where we live. And my wife and I quite literally work with sick people all the time. No, I'm not a doctor, nor do we have medical expertise, so my wife and I contracting something is usually pretty high. So we pack Motrin, or whatever the store brand is that we'll buy every time we left her with her grandparents for more than a day. Update 1. About a month ago, I made this post ranting about my in-laws' weird obsession with a, for lack of a better term, cult regarding stem cell regeneration through patches, which clearly isn't a real thing. There's been some development on that end, and while I'm confident things will likely end here, I wanted to give a quick update for those who may have been curious. I'm writing this on the toilet at work, so don't mind the rushing of it all. After my wife essentially cut ties with them, and we all received a million phone calls and text messages from family and friends, things quieted down for about a week or two. We started having my sister watch our daughter instead when we had to work. We haven't had another out-of-town trip since the initial post. However, through those couple of weeks, we never really heard anything beyond a couple of supposed shit-talking posts on Facebook bitching about us, but I can't seem to find the posts. We thought things were probably hopefully going to end there, but boy were we wrong. And this is quite the jump from the last post. My wife and I were visited by CPS about 2 weeks ago, or so after they received concerning calls about supposed child abuse and negligence within the household. Of course, nothing like that happened, and the caseworker was very quick to see that. We had asked who reported her, and while she couldn't say, we had a suspicion it was from her parents. We were completely helpful and cooperative with the caseworker, and after she left that night, my wife called her mom up and asked her if she's the one who called CPS. Surprisingly, her mother took full accountability, but not so surprisingly, tried to spin it around in her favor, claiming that she did it for her own good because our daughter was sick and she wasn't getting any better when she was there. So, clearly we were doing something awful as parents. Kids get sick, it happens. But they're also extreme anti-vaxxers, not just COVID. I mean, everything from even something as trivial as the flu shot. Yet they're willing to shell out thousands of dollars for some supposed stem cell regeneration sticker. The hypocrisy and irony in there is unmatched. My wife didn't really know how to react to that. So she basically told her mom to go herself, and she wants nothing to do with her again. I know I saw a few comments on the last post saying maybe we shouldn't have cut them out entirely, but now I'm starting to question why we didn't cut them out years ago, before our daughter was even a thought in our heads. About a week after the first audit, my mother-in-law showed up to our house on my day off while my wife was at work and essentially demanded to see our daughter, forcing her way into our home by pushing past my arm when I told her to get the hell out of my house. She had no business marching in here like that. She essentially told me that I'm unfit to be a parent because I'm depriving my daughter of help she desperately needed because she's clearly a very sick child. My daughter is perfectly healthy right now, and in fact has had no stuffy nose and no high temperature, nothing. I told my MIL straight up that she was batshit insane. I went off on her about how she lied to us, went against our wishes, had the audacity to call and lie to CPS, and then show up at our house unannounced, uninvited, and march herself inside, as well as everything about her X39 LifeWave. We argued there for a while before I finally got so fed up, I told her to leave my house before I called the police. She stormed out of the house and, in true Karen fashion, said, "This isn't over," before slamming my door. I immediately called my wife, who was of course irate. The following morning, we filed a restraining order at the courthouse from her mom and dad because they're clearly not in their right mindset. The caseworker had to audit us a few more times as per their guidelines over the past 2 weeks, and yesterday was her last day where she informed us that we're doing good and she's sorry for the trouble they caused. We kept her up to speed on the LifeWave, the showing up unannounced, and the restraining order, and though she couldn't really take a side, she seemed apologetic. But my wife and I are pretty livid. We started looking at houses in another state to get as far away from her in-laws as possible. Our company has offices out there, so it's entirely possible we could just be transferred. So we're crossing our fingers that all goes well. The restraining order gets filed soon enough, and we'll get a place clear across the country so that this will hopefully be my last update. Update 2. Things aren't going to be as juicy in this post as the last two, but some new things have happened, so I'll just jump right in. After my in-laws called CPS on us for no discernible reasons other than we forbid them from seeing our daughter, things mostly quieted down. Some of you suggested that we should do more than just get a restraining order. So we bought some security cameras and had them installed all around our property. And our neighbors, who were pretty good friends of ours, was in the loop for the most part. And anytime we had to go somewhere, not only did we have video cameras recording every time someone entered our driveway displayed directly on our phones, our neighbors kept us updated too. She stopped coming around for the first few months and she called CPS on us. But just the month before last, as we were preparing to move, my in-laws somehow got word we planned on moving states and attempted to block our driveway, as her dad tried blocking the front door. Not sure what their plan was there because we have a back door and an extra side door leading from the kitchen, but I digressed. Her mom blocked the driveway, stopping our U-Haul or car from leaving the property and wouldn't budge even after we told them we would call the police. They told us they'd move if we told them where we were moving to, but my wife told them that that wasn't happening and they had 10 minutes to leave or we'd be calling the police. My neighbor came over during the commotion, but my in-laws still wouldn't budge. My daughter is crying during all of this as my wife is trying to console her as my neighbor, and I are attempting to remove my father-in-law from the doorway, but he wouldn't move. Eventually, my wife called the police, and I'm guessing another neighbor called them as well, because they responded within mere minutes. My in-laws kept screaming that we were taking their rightful grandchild away and that we'd all be damned to burn in hell for this. But honestly, that just made me laugh. The police kept asking them to leave, but they wouldn't. Eventually, they were arrested for refusing to leave, and the police were nice enough to call a tow truck for us to be able to back out of the driveway. Lo and behold, as the police were handcuffing my in-laws, they both had on those X39 patches, and even the police questioned them about it. But what's done is done. We were able to finally leave and on to new adventures. We've been settled in at our new house for the better part of over a month, and we're enjoying it greatly. No word from her in-laws, and they have no idea where we are. We have them blocked, but we'll eventually get messages from unknown numbers or Facebook accounts asking where we moved, but there's no way they're that foolish to believe we'll actually tell them. Luckily, neither my last state or this one have any grandparents' rights, so we're in the clear there. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully, this is my last update. Now, for some comments. Comment 1. Seriously look into a P.O. box and have all mail routed there. Op. Hey there, we actually did get our mail routed to a P.O. box. Comment 2. Why were they not arrested for violating a restraining order? Op. We informed the police they had a restraining order. I just don't think they cared. They were more concerned with getting them off our property as opposed to them violating the restraining order. I think one of their final charges after being arrested was violation of a restraining order, though. The police just didn't seem to care at the time, which is unfortunate to say the least. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Husband planned a trip with his brothers only after our baby was born. I begged him to stay, but he refused. This situation has caused a lot of tension between my husband and me, and now I'm questioning whether I'm being unreasonable. I, 30F, gave birth to our first child, Olivia, 2 months ago. Being a first-time mom has been both beautiful and overwhelming. My husband, Jake, 32M, was incredibly supportive during the pregnancy and promised that after Olivia was born, he would be there for me every step of the way, especially during those challenging first few months. Before Olivia was born, Jake and his friends had been planning a brothers-only trip for this summer, a week-long vacation to a cabin in the mountains for hiking, fishing, and bonding. When the trip was being discussed, I reminded Jake that Olivia would only be a few months old, and we would be deep in the newborn phase. He reassured me that if things got too tough, he would cancel the trip to help me out, and I trusted him. Now that Olivia is here, things have been harder than I anticipated. Between the sleepless nights, breastfeeding struggles, and just trying to adjust to motherhood, I've been feeling overwhelmed. Jake has been helpful, but I can tell he's excited about this trip, which is coming up next month. Last week, I asked Jake if he could consider canceling the trip, reminding him of his promise. I told him that I'm struggling and that having him gone for a whole week would be really tough on me. He seemed surprised and a bit hurt that I was asking him to cancel. He said he's been looking forward to this trip for months and that he needs a break too. He also pointed out that his parents live nearby and could help if I needed support while he was away. I understand that Jake needs a break and wants to spend time with his friends, but I can't help feeling like this is a time when I really need him by my side. I tried to explain that while I appreciate his parents' help, it's not the same as having him here. Jake said that I'm being unfair by asking him to cancel the trip after all the planning that went into it, and that I need to trust him to make sure I'm supported even if he's not physically there. Now we're at a bit of standoff. Some of my friends think I should let him go, saying that it's important for him to have some time away, especially after all the stress of becoming a new dad. But others agree that it's too soon for him to take off for a week, and that he should prioritize being home with me and Olivia. Additional info. I know some of you are wondering why Jake even thought this trip was a good idea in the first place, and trust me, I've asked myself that question more times than I can count. For 9 months, I carried our daughter, went through the pain of labor, and now I'm breastfeeding, which is a whole new level of exhaustion. Meanwhile, Jake planned this trip without a second thought and lied about canceling it when I expressed my concerns. He still thinks it's unreasonable for me to ask him not to leave for an entire week, especially when I'm feeling completely overwhelmed. It's not that I don't appreciate help from his parents, but having them stay for the week while he's gone doesn't really solve the issue. What I need is Jake here, being present and supporting me as we navigate parenthood together. If he's really committed to being a good husband and father, he needs to understand that this isn't the time for solo trips. Part of being a parent means putting your own wants on hold for the sake of your family. I'm not saying Jake's a bad person, but this definitely feels like a huge misstep on his part. I hope this is the only instance of him prioritizing himself over our needs, but it's hard not to have doubts when things like this happen. Maybe down the road, when I'm no longer breastfeeding, I'll take a week for myself, and we'll see how he handles things on his own. But for now, what I need is for him to step up and be the partner I know he's capable of being. Update 1. August 22nd, 2024. Hey everyone, I just wanted to get a quick update after reading through most of the replies. I was honestly overwhelmed by the amount of support and understanding I received. Thank you so much to everyone who took the time to respond. Your kind words and thoughtful advice really helped me feel less alone in this situation. A lot of you suggested that I should also take a week off, letting Jake stay with Olivia to get a break for myself. I really appreciate the sentiment behind that suggestion, but there are a couple of reasons why it's not realistic for me right now. First of all, I'm breastfeeding, so being away from Olivia for that long would be really difficult logistically. But beyond that, and this is something I know I need to work on, I just don't feel comfortable being away from my baby yet. I know it's not healthy to feel like I can't have her out of my sight, but I can't help it. I guess it's just that new mom anxiety that's really hard to shake. I've been debating whether or not to show Jake this thread. I'm worried that reading it might hurt his feelings, but I'm definitely going to have another conversation with him about everything. I'm willing to compromise and let him go on the trip, but I think a whole week is just too much. I'm leaning towards suggesting that he limit the trip to a maximum of 3 nights, so he can still have some time away with his friends, but not be gone for an entire week. I'll update again after we've talked. Thanks again for all the support, everyone. It really means a lot to me. Update 2. August 23rd, 2024. Hey everyone. I just wanted to share another update after having a very long and emotional talk with Jake. I won't get into every detail of our conversation, but I'll touch on the most important points. After putting Olivia to bed, I went straight to bed myself, feeling utterly exhausted. Jake was already asleep, but for some reason, the weight of everything just hit me all at once, and I started crying uncontrollably. My sobbing woke Jake up, and he immediately asked me what was wrong. I told him that I was just tired, but then I opened up about how anxious I've been feeling about his trip and being left alone with Olivia. I admitted something I've been reluctant to say out loud, that Jake hasn't been as involved as I thought he would be. This was one of my biggest fears when we found out we were having a baby. For context, Jake has a rocky relationship with his own dad. I won't go into detail about why his dad isn't the best, but his mom, my mother-in-law, remarried when Jake was in middle school, and his dad wasn't very present in his life. Jake has expressed to me before that becoming a father was scary for him because he's afraid of being a bad one, just like his dad. When he first told me that, I thought it would make him into a great father because it showed how much he cared about being a good dad long before we were even pregnant. When I vented to him about all of this, at first he tried to defend himself. He admitted that he's been freaking out about having a baby for so long and just didn't want to tell me. He said he didn't want to stress me out while I was pregnant because he knows how much I've always wanted to be a mother. Hearing him say that made me feel guilty, like I hadn't seen how much he's been struggling internally. I had tried to convince him that he was going to be a great dad when we had this conversation long ago, and now it all felt more complicated. I thought to myself, this can't go on much longer. I realized that if he was going to keep pulling away like this, I didn't know if I could handle it. So I asked him, is this what our life is going to look like from now on? Me with Olivia and you away? Because if it is Jake, then I don't think I can continue on like this. Jake told me to calm down and assured me that he wasn't going anywhere. Then he got really emotional. He even started to tear up. He said he didn't want to turn into his dad and that he hadn't realized that going on this trip could be a preliminary step toward becoming the absentee father he feared he might be. He apologized for not considering me and Olivia as much as he should have. Long story short, Jake called his friends and told them he wouldn't be able to make the trip. He's even started planning a little family getaway for the three of us next year when Olivia is a bit older. It was a tough conversation, but I feel like we're on the same page now, and I'm hopeful that things will get better from here. Thanks again to everyone for your support and advice. It's been an emotional roller coaster, but I'm grateful for this community helping me navigate it. We have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for listening. If it made you think, feel, or just escape for a while, smash that like and subscribe so you never miss our future stories. See you next time.